Chapter 352. The news of the tournament for the best was no doubt a bombshell. It was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. Since the announcement of the tournament was posted on the official website at midnight on the 20th of April, the gaming world was in a state of chaos. Due to the news of the tournament for the best, the heroes from all over the world readied themselves for battle. They wanted to use the last 10 days to increase their strength as much as they could. Therefore, the price at the auction house skyrocketed. The service of exchanging RMB for game coins also gained popularity. Even many players who had never spent money before could not resist the temptation. The sales of the Thriller box increased significantly. For those who had accumulated several thousand skill points, if not now, when would they be able to use it? However, during this period, Feng Bujue did not come online for 3 days straight. In the blink of an eye, it was the 23rd of April. That morning, someone pressed the intercom at Feng Bujue's house. Brother Ju rolled off the sofa and landed on the ground. He staggered to the door in a daze. With his left hand on the wall, he picked up the phone with his right hand and placed it next to his ear. "Who is it?" "It's me, Ouyang Jian." A man's voice came from the other end. "Didn't I tell you not to come to me so early in the morning if there's nothing important?" Feng Bujue said. "Clear your head. It's 10 in the morning." Ouyang Jian roared. "Stop wasting time and open the door." Okay. Feng Bujue answered casually. As he pressed the button to open the door, he glanced at the clock on the wall. It was indeed 10 in the morning. I was so busy writing last night that I didn't sleep until 3 or 4 in the morning. Brother Ju had not been idle for the past 3 days. He had spent most of his time writing. Other than going online to look for information, he did not even look at the forums. Of course, it was not because he had changed his personality. He merely wanted to focus on the tournament for the best in May, so he wanted to finish all his work early. Bang, 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 bang. The sound of rapid knocking on the door was soon heard. Feng Bujue opened the door and looked at the man before him with an annoyed expression. "You know I have a doorbell, right? Knocking on the door can directly express my irritable mood," the other party replied. Mr. Ouyang Ruo was one of Feng Bujue's few friends. He was also Brother Ju's personal lawyer. Ouyang Jian was 30 years old this year, and he was already married and had a successful career. He looked dignified and righteous. Usually, whenever he went out, he would wear a well-ironed suit with his hair combed back and a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. At first glance, he seemed to be a steady and reliable young talent. But in fact, this guy was an out-and-out litigator. If Ouyang Ruo was born in the 60s, he would definitely become a troublemaker who would seriously affect the stability and unity of society. Even in 2055, a society where the legal system was quite complete, Feng Bujue once lamented, "It's a pity that you're not a consultant for the Italian mafia." It was undeniable that Ouyang Jian had all the qualities of a top lawyer. He was eloquent, quick-witted, skillful, and best at finding loopholes in the law. But for some reason, he liked to take on some weird cases or serve some weird people. In Ouyang Jian's eyes, the law was just a tool. Morality was not even a tool. It existed like a piece of paper. If there was a chance, he would not mind defending a serial killer or a drug lord. Because he had a very extreme principle. Victory was justice, and winning a lawsuit was the way for a lawyer to defend his professional integrity. Since people were very clear that they lived in an unfair and impossible world, then they should have a deeper understanding of the meaning of the judicial system. In this game, it was useless to raise the banner of morality. If you want justice to be served, you have to be able to play, and you have to play and win. In a copyright dispute a few years ago, Ouyang Jian became Feng Bujue's lawyer. So, their lives intersected. After that, the two of them became friends. Moreover, they were birds of a feather and regretted not having met earlier. Their encounter was akin to Hannibal Lecter meeting the Joker. In Xiao Tan's imagination, the scene of Brother Jian and Brother Ju talking alone would be. One side would use an elegant and calm tone to describe the cooking method of human flesh, and the other side would use a lazy but sinister tone to complain, "What the hell? Why didn't you tell me that you changed editors?" After entering the house, Ouyang Ruo walked to the sofa and sat down. She took something out of her briefcase as she asked, Is there need to inform you about this? Feng Bujue asked. Do you have to wait until you're in the dock before you remember my phone number and email address? Ouyang Jian replied, half-jokingly. Not necessarily. If one day I need to dispose of a body, destroy evidence, clean up the crime scene, I'll probably ask for your help, Feng Bujue said. Do you have some kind of misunderstanding about a lawyer's confidentiality agreement? Ouyang Jian said. No, I'm just confident in your character. After Feng Bujue closed the door, he yawned, rubbed his eyes, and walked over to sit diagonally across from Ouyang Jian. You're undoubtedly the kind of person who can help clients launder money, cover up evidence, change your name, and escape punishment. You can be said to be the conscience of the legal profession. First of all, I'm a law-abiding citizen. Ouyang Jian had already turned on the tablet he brought and was flipping through the documents. Secondly, I'm quite sure the lawyer you're talking about is Saul Goodman, a fictional character in Breaking Bad. Isn't Saul your goal? Feng Bujue asked with a smile. If my goal is Saul, does that mean your goal is V? Ouyang Rual was one of the rare few who could hold her ground against Brother Ju when it came to verbal sparring. Unfortunately, I don't have V's execution ability, Feng Bujue said, and I think without the halo of the protagonist, even if V's physical strength is a little stronger, it will be difficult to successfully implement the plans in the movie. He shrugged. Besides, V is a martyr who is brave enough to sacrifice, and I'm just a... Before Brother Ju could finish his words, Ouyang Jian picked up the tablet and displayed a text in front of Feng Bujue. They use powerful state machinery to imprison people's thoughts. They have mouthpieces to defend them, control public opinion, and numb people's hearts. The sanctimonious but despicable party members preach noble beliefs, but do the dirtiest things. They have a dense censorship system, surveillance measures, and isolated their people on a dark, deserted island. All their human rights are the most humble of maids. In the face of tyranny, there is no way to escape. And the high and mighty ruler has a luxurious palace, a luxurious life, and a wealth that is comparable to that of a country. They are above any law, even if those laws are set by themselves, and have unparalleled privileges. These privileges can be manifested in the form of luxury cars with special license plates and a rich man who ignores traffic laws. It could be the judgment of accusing a young girl of prostitution after raping her. It could be the contrast between the luxury of government office buildings and the simple and crude homes of the people. It could be the steady stream of profits in the sea of business because of the protection of various influential people. The people have almost forgotten the taste of butter, but the head of state can use a special train to satisfy his appetite. Of course, not only butter, but also the head of state cigars, and the warm milk that the head of state must drink every night, and those beautiful women who deliver milk. Everyone knows these, but you can't have any opinions. Otherwise, what awaits you is a terrible black bag. Do you still remember this movie review you wrote for V for Vendetta? Ouyang Rual made a quotation mark with her index and middle fingers. How much trouble did it bring to us? It is indeed just a movie review. Feng Bujue sneered. I still insist that people who overreact to this are guilty. Is that so? This is the first time I have seen someone use it in the last paragraph of a movie review. Pigs greedy for pleasure, ridiculing, laughing, timid, and fearful. Such wording. Ouyang Rual took the tablet back to her eyes. If it weren't for the fact that you haven't done anything substantial, and that this movie review did mention some of the plot in the movie, I am afraid that we would have to talk through bulletproof glass and iron windows now and talk through a microphone. Brother Ju stretched his back, used his hands to pillow his head, and leaned on the sofa. Okay, lawyer, let's not talk about this anymore. What is it that requires you to come here in person? Didn't I tell you when I entered the room? It is about your new editor. Ouyang Rual opened a new document and handed the tablet in her hand to Feng Bujue. The latter took the tablet and looked at it. Then he asked, Is there a problem with my contract with the magazine? Brother Ju was not surprised that Ouyang Rual had a copy of his contract because Ouyang Rual was present when he signed the contract. One of them was a reading addict and the other was a professional. Therefore, they made an extra copy of the contract, and each of them took a copy to read. It was convenient for them to exchange opinions. There is no problem with the contract. Ouyang Ruo said, "It is you who has a problem." Huh? What are you talking about? You think your past behavior of procrastinating in the past is over. Ouyang Ruo said, "Look down. I have marked all the places where you violated the contract with different colors." Feng Bujue dragged the document on the tablet and quickly found the content mentioned by Ouyang Ruo. He quickly skimmed through it. "Then according to the contract, I have to compensate. That is not necessary." Ouyang Ruo interrupted. "The other party said that they will not pursue the matter for the time being." The other party? Feng Bujue paused for a second. "And Yuaqin? What do you think?" Ouyang Ruo replied, "It can't be. She came to see you?" After Feng Bujue said this, he immediately reacted. I miscalculated. I shouldn't have left your contact information with the magazine. I also feel that it is very strange. I remember that in the emergency contact column, you only filled in Wang, Tanji, and Baoqing," Ouyang Ruo said. "What did you fill in my name and contact information?" "Of course, I added it after you left." Feng Bujue continued. "I also added a parenthesis next to your name, indicating that you were a lawyer." Ouyang Ruo looked up at the sky and sighed. "You know, I am considering for clients like you to adopt a third option other than charging by the hour or charging by the hour." "What is that?" Brother Bujue asked. "A regular protection fee, of course," Ouyang Ruo joked. "Tis," Feng Bujue said. "With our friendship, why are you talking about money, right? Besides, for a lawyer like you, shouldn't making money be as easy as drinking water?" Ouyang Ruo laughed dryly. "If I worked at a large international law firm, maybe making money would be as easy as taking a piss." He shook his head and said, "A small lawyer like me works like crazy. My hourly salary is about the same as a student working in a convenience store." He looked helpless. "Occasionally, I have to deal with one or two people like you. You're making money from selling cabbages, but you're worried about selling heroin." During the conversation, Feng Bujue had already finished reading the contents of the contract. He brought the topic back on track. "I say, the words 'let's not pursue the matter for now' seem very subtle." "There's nothing subtle about it. It's a blatant threat," Ouyang Ruo said. "Personally, I think it's reasonable, and legal to implement it on you." He sighed with satisfaction. "It's so satisfying. Speaking of which, this little girl is quite brave." Feng Bujue thought of Yuaqin's expression and said, "After she was defeated by me, she came up with this act every 3 days. Anyway, you're on your own now." Ouyang Ruo took the laptop back and put it in his bag. "According to the contract, you're the second-rate detective and the cat will be serialized for at least another year. Since you're working for someone else, you should restrain yourself. Don't make things difficult for yourself. It's just handing in the draft on time." Feng Bujue stood up and prepared to walk Ouyang Ruo to the door. "For me, as long as I'm serious about it, there's nothing I can't do." Ouyang Ruo walked to the door. "Oh, right, I've been working since this morning and haven't had anything to eat yet. Do you want to come out and eat with me?" "I just woke up and have no appetite," Feng Bujue said. "Also, I have to deal with your footprints as soon as possible." "My feet." Ouyang Ruo lowered his head, and the next second, his expression changed. "Hey, what is this?" "Don't worry, it's just cat poop." Feng Bujue yawned again. You stepped on it not long after you came in. When I noticed it, it was already too late to warn you. So this is the weird smell that I've been smelling." Ouyang Jin roared. "How did you manage to be so calm the whole time?" "I'm used to it," Feng Bujue said with a nonchalant expression. "And actually, before you came in, I stepped on it too." Chapter 353. After 3 days of hard work, Feng Bujue finally finished designing the story for June. The outline, details, and foreshadowing had been confirmed. All that was left was the simple writing process and some improvisation. He only needed to finish that in the next 20 days. Over the past few days, Xiao Tan had contacted him several times to update him on his teammates. Passing Rain had recovered from her illness 2 days ago and had come online yesterday. However, Chunga heard that she did not plan to join the competition because she was not interested. Laughing Soul, on the other hand, came up with a set of probability theory that sounded quite reliable. After some calculation, she believed that she would at most get into the top 100. Considering the fact that the prize for the top 100 could be bought with RMB, and she did not expect to become famous through this competition, she was too lazy to join it. Xiao Tan was quite passionate about this competition, but unfortunately, he was the weakest in Underworld Frontline. Even though Laughing Soul did not pour cold water on him, she still did not have high hopes for him. So, let's talk about Xiao Tan's current situation. Wang Tanji, ID. Wang Tanji, level 30 title, Whirlwind Nightmare Mastery. General ability D, Workmanship E, Sleuthing C, Fighting C, Marksmanship E, Medic E, Sorcery E, Summoning in A skills. Devil Bat Ghost Shadow Rootless Guest Worries Wind Stops Dust Reverse Spinning / Flying Lizard Traces. Title ability. Even though the names of these skills sounded cool, the actual effect was not that strong. The first choice was name, Rootless Guest Worries skill card type. Active permanent skill type, Sleuthing effect. When you're in a crowd, gain the ability to go invisible, no cooldown, consumption. 3 stamina points per second learning requirement. Sleuthing Remark. What to do when there is no crowd. This was similar to the skill in Assassin's Creed that allowed one to sneak into a crowd of pedestrians. The skill's remark was quite sarcastic. Now, name. Feng Zhichen's Fragrant Flowers Are Gone, skill card type. Active, permanent skill type. Fighting effect. Leave behind an afterimage that lasts for 3 seconds, 1 second cooldown. Consumption, 50 stamina points, learning requirement. Fighting D or level 27, remark. Things remain the same, but people have changed. That's right, after Lu Yu, Li Qingzhao was also shot. This skill, which was basically a weakened version of Afterimage Punch, actually had such a poetic name. The remarks even matched the name. As for the next 2 skills, one of them was bought. After the sword duel at Changlin, Xiao Tan sold the vending machine basher that he had picked up from the scenario. He used the same amount to buy reverse spinning / from the auction house and made it his main offensive skill. This kind of skill that was put up for auction naturally wouldn't be that strong. Name, reverse spinning / skill card attribute. Active, permanent skill type. Fighting, effect, perform a high-speed spinning / cooldown. 1 minute, requires user to wield a sharp weapon and stand on a flat surface to cast. Consumption, 300 stamina points per requisite. Fighting Remark. According to legend, this is a sword skill created by Guanping. Gripping the blade in a reverse grip, the user spins on the ground, and the enemy within range will be swept away. The last skill was Xiao Tan's current title ability. With the change in title, Bee's Sting had become history, and the new one was name. Flying Bee's Tray Special skill type. Passive effect. When a user's movement speed reaches more than 10 kilometers per hour, the user can walk on walls. The angle between the surface and the ground is greater than or equal to 90 degrees, and leave behind a trail of black flame. Remark. Illidan often tells me that Maev Shadow Song is the best tracker he's ever met. Honestly, does this blind man really not know what he's leaving behind when he's walking? Those are the new skills that Xiao Tan had gained over the past few days. Other than that, I believe that most of you have already forgotten the learning requirement for his mantra of heaven and earth inversion. There's no need for you to look through the skill database. I'll explain it directly here. Learning requirement. Fighting B, Sorcery C, level 30 and above. Skill card cannot be traded after picked up. Obviously, he still did not meet the learning requirement. Therefore, even though Xiao Tan seemed to have 5 skills, in reality, other than reverse spinning / he could only rely on normal attacks or modern weapons to take the lives of others. If he did not improve his equipment or skills in the next few days, it was very likely that he would be eliminated within 3 or 4 rounds. Back to Brother Ju. On the afternoon of the 23rd of April, after Feng Bujue inspected and saved all the documents, he sighed in relief. He could finally relax for a while. However, he was not in a hurry to log into the game. Instead, he went to the game forum to check out the situation over the past few days. As expected, it's all about the competition, Feng Bujue muttered as he flipped through the posts. The forum was already very popular, and it was like adding oil to the fire. There were many posts with titles like Strategy for the Tournament of the Best and How to Reach Level 30 in 10 Days. The funniest thing was that Fong Bujua even saw a post with the ID 7 Luminaries. The title of the post was Prediction of the Top 100 in the Tournament of the Best, and my opinion on the strength of each workshop. However, when he clicked on it, he realized that the person who posted the post did not join any guild, was not a member of any workshop, and had not reached level 30. It was as if he was telling the story of the underworld to everyone as a part-time worker. It was better to think about it himself than to believe him. Actually, Fong Bujua had already roughly studied the method of advancement in the competition 3 days ago. It could not be said that this set of rules was very reasonable, but it was obviously necessary to have an appropriate chance. If there were no chance factors in the competition, then there was no need to compete. They could just give the prizes to the players on the combat ranking. In short, as long as the chance factors in the competition could provide the weak with an appropriate opportunity and not make the strong feel that they were cheated, then everyone could accept it. At this stage, the rules of the preliminaries provided by the Dream Company were as follows. Starting from midnight on May 1st, players could queue up to enter the new tournament of the best preliminaries. Every player had to go through a total of 50 preliminaries. Of course, the players did not need to finish all 50 matches consecutively. They only needed to finish all 50 matches in the first half of May. On average, they could only play about 3 matches a day. Moreover, the preliminaries used a 1v1 map specifically for the competition. Victory and defeat could be determined in a short period of time. After all 50 matches were completed, players could no longer enter the preliminaries queue. After all the preliminaries ended, the system would arrange for players to advance based on the winning rate of the 50 matches they had completed. There were 2 other special rules. First, players who did not win 4 matches in a row in any stage of the preliminaries would be eliminated directly. Second, players who did not lose 15 matches in a row in any stage of the preliminaries would advance directly. This rule was mainly to filter out players who were too strong or too weak. It was to prevent players with average standards from frequently encountering point giveaways or overpowered maniacs in the preliminaries. This was also a way to reduce the chance of advancement. That was because the queuing system of the competition was completely random. It was different from the killing games that try to balance the matchmaking system. One could not rule out the possibility of someone being extremely lucky and encountering 50 lousy opponents in a row. However, Fong Bujua did not know that he did not need to study the rules of the preliminaries at all. This was because he did not need to participate in any preliminaries. He did not even need to participate in the semifinals. On April 30th, the Dream Company would announce another piece of news while announcing the rules of the semifinals. This would cause a huge uproar and cause a large number of players to be dissatisfied. Of course, the Dream Company would not care. The news was that in the final stage of this competition, which was the stage of the top 100, 10 spots had been taken. These 10 people were so-called specially invited players. They did not need to participate in any selection. Fong Bujua was one of them. Chapter 354. It was evening. After eating dinner, feeding the cat, and tidying up a bit, Fong Bujua laid down in the game cabin. After a series of operations, he finally arrived at the login lobby. Unexpectedly, as soon as he appeared in the elevator, a text window popped up in front of him, accompanied by a system voice prompt. You are currently ranked 2nd on the combat effectiveness ranking. Please choose whether to publicly reveal your nickname, currently anonymous by default. Immediately after, another dialog box appeared. There were a total of 3 options: publicly, anonymously, and choose later. Fong Bujua was slightly surprised by this, but after thinking about it, he understood that it was reasonable. He thought about it for a while and chose to remain anonymous. Operation successful. You can change this setting at any time from the touchable menu in the login lobby. In the future, if you temporarily leave the combat effectiveness ranking and return, the system will automatically use this setting. After settling this matter, Fong Bujua immediately began to check his mail. Needless to say, There was already a pile of mail waiting for him in the mailbox. According to the chronological order, the first sender was Blade Runner. On the 19th, when he sent the endless grenade box, he said that there were 2 more items from the hard drive 2455, and one that would be sent the next day. However, since the second day, Brother Jew had not been online, so he only received them today. One of the items was frowny face name, WJQ, 308 military shovel, indestructible. Type, tool, quality, excellent, function, everything. Remark, this is the most dominant military product developed by a certain country after the Take Your Life 3000. It has all the functions of a shovel, axe, saw, hammer, ruler, bottle opener, can opener, pliers, wrench, paddle, shield, hook, anchor, and pickaxe. The words "Made in China" on the wooden handle is undoubtedly a guarantee of quality. And the other item was name, energy storage tri-edge bayonet, type, weapon, quality, excellent, attack, strong, attribute, no special effect, 100% additional bleeding effect, theoretically, targets can bleed, provides 1% to 100% additional damage based on energy storage. Prerequisite, Fighting C, level 30, remarks, automatic energy storage speed is 1% per second. Young Master Jian was indeed a man of his word, a man of his word. There was no evidence to back up that verbal promise. Even if he reneged on it, Feng Bujue would have nothing to say. However, young Master Jian handled the matter very well and was also very kind. In fact, he could send 3 pieces of garbage to Feng Bujue and say that they were created from the hard drive. No one could prove it anyway, but he didn't. Whether it was the grenade magazine from before or the military shovel and stiletto now, they were all very practical and powerful equipment. These 3 items would not be bound after use, which meant that even if Feng Bujue did not use them, he could still put them up for sale in the auction house. Of course, Brother Jew would not do that. These are all good stuff. Even if he did not use them himself, he could give them to his teammates. Brother Feng, even if I give you everything, the quality is not bad, right? Also, you must have seen the announcement of the competition this morning. You will definitely participate, right? I'll look forward to fighting you again in the competition. Don't get eliminated too early. That was the content of the email sent by Blade Runner on the morning of the 20th. This is a F***king threatening letter. Feng Bujue complained as he looked at the email. Isn't it just a one-on-one duel that ended in a draw? What kind of grudge do you have against me? Then, Brother Jew opened the second email. It was from Shiva. Brother Feng, you seem to be very busy these few days and have not been online. I have something to discuss with you in person. I hope you will reply when you see the email. Feng Bujue read the message and thought about it for about 3 seconds. Then he scoffed and typed a reply on the control panel. I appreciate your kindness, but there is no need to bring this up again. About 2 hours later, Shiva exited one of the scenarios and saw this reply for Brother Jew. If one had to make an analogy, it was like a boy placing a letter in a girl's desk, asking her to meet him after school. But before school ended that day, he received a reply that said, "You are a good person." In the next 10 minutes, Feng Bujue read the emails from other friends or players that he had played with recently. 7 kills, Shadow King, weighty words, Autumn Wind, Atobi-sama, Meng Jingchan, and Hong Hu. None of them were left out. The content of the emails were all related to the competition, and they could be split into 3 categories. Other than the threatening and poaching type, there are also the weird ones. For example, the email from Jean Fugue read, "A farmer in the morning, ascending to the Tianzi Hall at night. Generals have no balls. Men should strive for self-improvement." Feng Bujue had a hard time figuring out what was going on. Why would the other party send him a poem like this? Was this some kind of threat? Was this some kind of self-motivation before the target to achieve the goal of intimidation? Therefore, Brother Jew came up with 2 lines of a limerick and replied, "There's a saying that goes, out of the brothel, the one who fails the exam is the most romantic." That was to scare the boss of the male prostitute group, to make him behave. After dealing with the emails and putting away the items, Feng Bujue went to the market to take a look. Then, he was invited to Xiao Tan's meeting room. The other 3 members of Underworld Frontline had been waiting for him. When Brother Jew walked in, Xiao Tan and Laughing Soul were sitting at the table, using the projector to study the attributes of a few pieces of equipment. Like Rain stood alone on the side. Her back was leaning against the wall. Her hands were in front of her chest, closing her eyes to rest. After the Tsang sword duel ended, Like Rain listened to Feng Bujue's suggestion and changed a set of clothes. Considering factors such as mobility, cold resistance, practicality, and so on, after some consideration, she finally bought a set of Survey Corps suit in the market. The upper part of the suit was a light brown long-sleeve jacket. The collar was turned out. The jacket was short, only to the ribs. The outer part was a white shirt. The lower part was white tight trousers, and the feet were a pair of knee-high dark brown leather boots. Around the waist of this outfit, there was a brown belt that looked like a skirt. It connected the suspenders and the belt on the legs. Of course, the suit did not have the intertwined wing mark of Survey Corps. Instead, it was replaced by the logo of Underworld Frontline. "Yo, everyone, long time no see." Feng Bujue greeted them as soon as he came in. "We haven't seen each other for 3 or 4 days. Laughing Soul responded weakly. Xiaotan looked up and said, "Brother Bujue, how is the manuscript?" "Naturally, it's almost done before I go online." Feng Bujue answered and turned his head to Like Rain. The two looked at each other for a few seconds. Feng Bujue murmured, "Hiss, the way you look at me today, it seems a bit unnatural." "Oh," Like Rain still responded calmly. "Then what kind of look should I use to look at you? Is it natural?" "It's the kind of look that you suddenly pull out a knife and stab me to death. There's no sense of disharmony." Like Rain turned her head without any expression and moved her sight away from Feng Bujue's face. She said calmly and coldly, "Bitch. I'm scolded by this kind of words that the system doesn't block." Feng Bujue smiled and walked to the conference table. "It seems that I reap what I sow. Your sense of humor combines the childishness of a child and the depravity of a pervert." The corner of Like Rain's lips curled up into an imperceptible smile, but she quickly hid it. "So this is the so-called divine annoyance." As she said that, she walked to the conference table and sat down. "All right, let's talk about the game." Feng Bujue said, "First, did anyone notice that an anonymous hero suddenly appeared on the combat stat ranking and climbed straight to the 2nd place?" Laughing Soul was the first to react. "Captain, you're not going to say that person is you, are you?" "Yes, it's me." Feng Bujue shrugged calmly. He did not sound like he was joking, so when his teammates heard that, they were all startled. "Really?" Xiao Tan asked with widened eyes. Before Feng Bujue could answer, Like Rain said with some thought, "I see. Oh. Have you guessed it was me from the very beginning?" Feng Bujue asked suspiciously after hearing what she said. "Yes," Like Rain answered. Other than yes, you don't have anything else to say?" "Like why?" Feng Bujue asked. "No," Like Rain said. Since the man did not plan to tell him, Feng Bujue did not press further. He changed the topic. "Okay, in any case, I just want to remind everyone that I can be considered a powerful player now. When you're queuing up with me, you have to be mentally prepared because the difficulty might increase." "Is that so?" "That's interesting." Laughing Soul suddenly interrupted. She used a cunning gaze to look at Like Rain. "The idea that I mentioned earlier, do you still want to bring it up now?" "What idea?" Feng Bujue looked around to ask. "A team practice match." Like Rain gave the most concise answer. When Feng Bujue heard that, he understood half of it. "Oh, good idea." He paused and looked at Like Rain. His finger pointed at Xiao Tan. "You sure take good care of this kid." "Huh? What is it?" Xiao Tan was confused. "You don't get it?" Brother Bujue smiled. "It's fine if you don't get it." He leaned back in his chair and turned to Like Rain. "Then, you thought about how the 4 of us will be split into groups, right? Based on the principle of the strongest being paired with the weakest, it should be me and you in one group, and Xiao Tan and my cousin in the other," Laughing Rain replied. "But now, naturally you guys will be in one group, and we girls will be in the other." Feng Bujue nodded. "Yes, that's the best way to do it. It ensures a balance between the strong and the weak, and it separates those who participate in the competition from those who do not." "Then, let's discuss the details and get ready to start," Like Rain said. Chapter 355. Feng Bujue, Level 29. Wang Tanji, Level 30. Your team is joining a 2v2 killing game. Your team has chosen their opponent. Waiting for the opponent's confirmation. Confirmed. Generating scenario. Downloading. Please wait a moment. Feng Bujue's body instantly felt weightless, and his vision darkened. Then, a child's scream echoed in his ears. Make your opponent tremble in fear. Let them experience real terror. Loading complete. You are currently playing the killing game. A scenario introduction is provided in this mode, and there is a chance to trigger hidden side quests and special world building. Reward for winning the scenario. Puzzle card X2, playing the scenario introduction soon. The game will start immediately. The introductory cinematic played. On the screen, a building that was rather large appeared. At the beginning of the 22nd century, everything you own became the largest global corporation on Earth. As we all know, everything you owned started from the retail business and became the leader of the industry in just 5 years. To this day, you can find everything in the supermarkets under everything you own. Be it clothing, cloth, medicine, toys, daily necessities, home appliances, jewelry, makeup, car parts, small yachts. There's everything you need here. Even if you come here with an electronic product that was released 10 years ago and is no longer in production, you can buy the related parts or repair it. When the narration reached this point, the scene quickly zoomed down from a bird's eye view to the side of the building. One could see that there was a 5-pointed star logo on the outside of the building, and the two sides of the logo had the words, "Everything you own." This is the world's largest everything you own market. Night has fallen, and business hours are over. The cleaning and settlement work is over. As the people leave, the hustle and bustle of this large building faded away, leaving behind only silence and darkness. But when the clock strikes midnight, the cinematic and audio stopped, and the system announcement came. Main quest triggered. Kill all the members of the enemy team. Side quest triggered. Join the classic camp and end the war. A side quest just like that. Feng Bujue looked at the two quests that appeared in the game menu. Before he had time to think about it, the script had officially started. Although it was still pitch black in front of him, the feeling of his body regaining mobility was very obvious. Feng Bujue quickly took out the flashlight from his backpack. He used his hand to cover the light source before he turned on the light. Considering Laughing Soul's sniping ability, reaction speed, and reasoning skills, Feng Bujue did not dare be careless. From this simple action, one could see how cautious he was. Without knowing the situation around them, the light from the flashlight could be fatal. If his position was exposed, even if he wasn't instantly killed, he would fall into an absolute passive state. Therefore, Feng Bujue chose to use his hand to cover the flashlight before turning it on. He first used the faint light between his palms to explore the situation around him before making a decision. But in the next second, an obvious source of light suddenly lit up beside Brother Ju. Brother Ju, why are you covering the flashlight? Xiao Tan was wearing the miner's hat and looked at Feng Bujue innocently. I'm asking for it. Feng Bujue mocked himself with a fake smile. He then removed his hand and allowed the flashlight to shine out. After looking around, Feng Bujue realized that he and Xiao Tan were standing inside an enclosed rectangular room. The room was empty, not even a door or window. There were 6 sides to the room, and they were all made of the same material. It felt like cardboard, but the surface was very rough and had a strangely thick feel to it. Brother Ju measured the length, width, and height of the room. It was about 8, 5, and 3 meters. By the way, Brother Ju, you said earlier that Xiao Ling is taking care of me. What do you mean? Xiao Ten asked. Now that there were only the two of them, Feng Bujue had nothing to worry about. He replied, You don't even understand. She suggested this team practice battle for you. For me? Xiao Tan replied. Nonsense. She's not participating. Feng Bujue said, She's not participating either. As for me, even though I'm not a veteran, I'm quite experienced in killing games. You guys know this. So, there's not much point in me participating in this practice battle. I see. Indeed, I haven't played enough killing games. Xiaotan scratched his chin and nodded. So, in this match, the three of you will be my training partners? Not necessarily, Feng Bujue said. If we're purely sparring partners, we can choose a free-for-all, and then the three of us will take turns to torture you. Hey, there's such a plan. Xiaotan gasped. But that kind of practice won't be that effective. Feng Bujue said, because the three of us, if we're serious, you'll have no chance of winning against any one of us. Xiaotan could not deny that. In the few killing games that he had participated in before, one of them was a 1v1 with Laughing Soul, and she won easily. If the difference in skill is too big, the loser will not be able to learn anything. In fact, they might lose their confidence and be left with a psychological scar. Feng Bujue continued. So like now, I'll team up with you and have a close match with the two of them. That will be more helpful to you. He explained, of course, I'm sure Laughing Soul did not expect me to reach the second place on the combat ability ranking in just a few days. That is undoubtedly good news because based on the principle of strength and weakness, it should have been Passing Rain leading you. But that would not have been as efficient as me leading you. That's true. Sister Rain is not a talkative person, and she always kills everything that stands in her way without saying a word, Xiaotan said. During their conversation, they had inspected the whole room in detail, but they did not find any hint or trigger any scenario. Okay, Feng Bujue removed his gloves and touched the wall carefully again. There was still no breakthrough, so he said, there are two possibilities for this situation. First, the system wants us to break down the wall to leave. Xiaotan asked, what about the second? The second is to wait for some kind of event to happen due to the passage of time, Feng Bujue said. Coincidentally, before he could finish his sentence, the second situation occurred. Suddenly, one side of the ceiling started to rise. Several seconds later, the whole ceiling tilted at about 10 degrees, and a ray of white light shone in from the side that was raised. Feng Bujue and Wang Tangji lifted their heads to look, and they saw two heads poke out from the crack that was opened. From their looks, one was Ultraman and the other was Optimus Prime. Chapter 356. Look what we found, Optimus Prime said in his Autobot voice. Looks like there are two spies from Novel hiding here, and they are eavesdropping on our strategy meeting. Xia, the second sound. Ultraman replied from the side. Optimus Prime looked at Brother Ju and Xiaotan and said in a serious tone, Gentlemen, do you want to come out on your own? Or do we have to do it ourselves? Air. We'll just jump out from there. Feng Bujue used his finger to point at the gap opened by Optimus Prime. Can we jump out from there? Optimus Prime turned to look at Ultraman. These two guys seem a little amusing. Ultraman said, Xia. It was unclear how Optimus Prime understood M78's nebula language. Perhaps it was due to Cybertron's advanced translation technology. Hurry up and come out, don't waste time. When Optimus Prime said that, the gap closed again. Feng Bujue and Xiaotan looked at each other. 2 seconds later, it was Xiaotan who spoke first. Don't you think they're a bit weird? Of course they are. Ultraman is normally around 50 meters tall, and Optimus Prime is around 9 meters tall. Feng Bujue said, but these two have almost the same size heads, and from the angle of their heads and the ratio of their heads, they are at most 4 meters tall. As he spoke, he leaped upward. Based on the sound of the gap opening and closing, the ceiling appeared to be very light, and it could be lifted easily. Therefore, Brother Ju jumped to see if he could lift the ceiling. And he succeeded. Feng Bujue used too much strength. The whole ceiling flew up and landed outside the room. Above his head was a dark and distant sky. The white light that they saw earlier came from the side of the room. The light source was unclear, but it was probably some kind of large searchlight. Wow, that's amazing. Xiaotan gasped when he saw Brother Ju blow the ceiling away. Feng Bujue landed steadily and replied, No, it's not that I'm amazing, but the ceiling is much lighter than I thought. It really is just a large piece of cardboard. He paused. In any case, let's go out and see what's going on. The 3-meter-tall wall was like nothing to them. The two of them easily climbed over it. When they reached the outside of the room, they understood immediately. In fact, the place they were in was not a room at all, but a shoebox. It was indeed made from cardboard, and there were labels and words printed on the outside. The roof was the lid of the shoebox, and it was not far away. As for the white light source, it wasn't a giant searchlight hanging high up in the sky. It was just a table lamp. Looking around, the surroundings were incredibly large. Shelves the size of skyscrapers, teacups the size of phone booths, pins the size of telephone poles that were inserted into pen holders that were taller than humans. "We've been shrunk." Xiaotan was startled before he realized what was going on. No wonder Jack, Ultraman, and Brother Zhu were the same size, and they are only twice our height. Feng Bujua mumbled. He understood that they were just two toys. Other than Optimus Prime and Ultraman, there were a bunch of other toys standing outside the shoebox. However, they were not as big as Brother Zhu and Jack. They were about the same size as the players. I have not seen this kind of product before. A dinosaur that was slightly shorter than Ultraman said, "Are you some kind of high-tech mannequin?" As it spoke, it moved its large nose forward like it was trying to sniff the scent of Feng Bujua and Xiaotan. They're probably some kind of new product. Pleasant Goat, plastic pencil sharpener. Added, even the scantily clad figurines from Novel are not as exquisite as these two. For some reason, I suddenly have the urge to join the Novel camp. Feng Bujua whispered. Xiaotan was more honest. He told the toys directly, actually, we should be members of an organization called Classic." "What?" Optimus Prime replied. "That is strange. As the leader of Classic, how come I have not heard of this before?" Ultraman added, "So wake, you're right." A small locomotive with a cartoon face agreed. It looked like other than the players, everyone else could understand Ultraman. Feng Bujua did not dwell on what the salted egghead said. He replied, "You have to trust us, Brother Zhu. We're here to help you win this war." He got into character immediately and put on a serious expression. "There are two evil toys that came from the same production line as us. They have joined Novel's camp. They are very powerful, and they might be able to bring you destruction." He said with conviction, "You need our help." A frog with a crown on its head gasped in panic. Oh my God. Optimus Prime, what should we do?" The surrounding toys were also in an uproar. "Calm down." Optimus Prime maintained his calm. He used an unquestionable tone to take control of the situation. Then he turned to Brother Zhu and Xiaotan. "How would I know whether you are telling the truth or not? Perhaps you're just two captured spies who came up with a random lie to get away with this. Don't worry. We can use our actions to win your trust." Feng Bujua replied seriously, "The thing that I hate the most in my life is those scantily clad figurines. With a command from Brother Zhu, I will jump on them without hesitation." "Hey, who would give that kind of command?" Xiaotan complained. "Win my trust." Optimus Prime was as calm as ever. Ever since the night of Thanksgiving Day, when the toy captain and his unit were betrayed by the Barbies, no one has dared to mention the word trust in front of me for half a year. He paused for a few seconds. "Furthermore, no matter how I look at it, your presence here is very suspicious." A giraffe doll said, "Hey, how about this? We use these two spies to exchange hostages with Novel." Tigger has been captured for a week already. "But," Optimus Prime said in a low voice. He took 2 steps forward and looked down at the two players. "I don't mind giving them a chance." He then turned his head and shouted, "Mario!" A plastic Mario bounced out from the group of people, toys, and replied, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Add them to the Nintendo assault team." Optimus Prime ordered. "They will be the vanguard for tonight's operation." "Yes, sir." Mario didn't have the slightest doubt as he replied decisively. Optimus Prime looked at Feng Bujua. "Since you wish to prove yourselves, I shall wait and see." Chapter 357. With Mario leading the way, Brother Bujua and Xiaotan hurried through a large room that looked like a warehouse. Along the way, at every set interval, there would be a table lamp that was on. Lifting their heads, they could see many toys standing on the shelves around them. It looked like the Classic camp was quite big. In a way, they could be called an army. When Feng Bujue opened the shoe box earlier, he thought there was a dark sky above them, but that was not the case. Directly above them was the ceiling of the first floor of the supermarket. However, since he and Xiao Tan had been shrunk to the size of 7 centimeters, and the light from the table lamp was directed downward, when they looked up, they could not see the faraway ceiling. All they could see was darkness. A few minutes later, Mario led them to a huge door. Of course, the size was only relative. Here, are we going out? Feng Bujue asked as he stood behind Mario. We won't be able to squeeze through the gap, and we won't be able to push the door open, right? Even though he had no idea how powerful the toys in the scenario were, he did not think that this 5-centimeter tall Mario toy before him will be able to push open a door meant for normal humans. At that moment, Xiaotan came up with an obviously unreliable guess. Perhaps there's a mouse hole nearby? Looks like you two are not spies. Mario touched the brim of his hat. You're just two idiots who know nothing. As he spoke, he walked to the door and took out a wrench from the pocket of his overalls. He knocked on the door 3 times, paused for 2 seconds, and then knocked twice more. Then, Mario took several steps back like he was waiting for something. Not long after, a strange black shadow moved in through the crack of the door. The shadow looked like a sticker. From the side, it looked like a line, and from the front, it looked like a small black man with a big nose. Mr. Game Watch? Feng Bujue managed to recognize this 2D character that was shaped like a silhouette. Who are these two? Are you new here? Coder ignored Feng Bujue and talked to Mario in a normal tone. Optimus Prime has ordered them to be the vanguard tonight, Mario replied. Coder laughed dryly. I wish you all the best. Then, he went back through the crack in the door. After about a minute, there was some kind of movement from above. It was the sound of the door handle turning. At the same time, he could vaguely hear someone shouting from the other side of the door. The rotation is fixed. You can push it now. Step back, noobs. Mario immediately ordered the 2 players to step back. Squeak. Along with the sound of the door's axis slowly rotating, the huge door panel slowly moved towards Brother Ju and the others. Feng Bujue and Xiao Tan both tilted their heads and looked at the crack in the door. They wanted to see what was pushing the door open. In their imagination, it was at least a big toy that was over 50 centimeters tall and weighed over 3,000 grams. Unexpectedly, what appeared in front of him was just a plastic object that was less than 10 centimeters tall. Look at these 2 little guys. Cuba, the first antagonist in the history of video games who had an independent image, Mario's nemesis, stopped pushing the door and stood there. With such a small body, I can flip them over with just a fart. Feng Bujue did not mind Cuba's rude words. He only asked, how did you push the door open? I use my claws to push. I have to use the strength of my waist and legs. Cuba used his thick and hot-blooded voice to reply. But it's best that the 2 of you don't imitate me. All right, perhaps you won't be able to see them after tonight, Mario replied to Cuba. He then waved his hand to signal the gamers to follow him. Feng Bujue looked at Xiao Tan and shrugged. The 2 of them continued to follow Mario and passed through the door that Cuba pushed open. Actually, the door only pushed a few centimeters, but the crack was enough for them to pass through. Okay, from here onwards, it's the neutral zone, Mario explained to the 2 people behind him. Our sphere of influence is mainly in the southeast corner. The sports brands, kitchen utensils, and half of the food department are under our control. He lifted his finger and pointed. Tonight's battle will still take place in the frozen food section. The players looked in the direction that Mario was pointing at. The scenery in the distance seemed to be a dark canyon. They could only see some tall silhouettes, but they had no idea what would happen when they got closer. As you can see, in this relatively large area outside, we can't arrange too many lighting devices, Mario continued. The night security guards patrol every 3 hours. If we move too many lights out, we might not be able to switch them off in time, and it might cause a lot of trouble. Therefore, the battle usually takes place in the frozen food section where there are lights 24 hours a day. He suddenly turned his head. Do the 2 of you have any parts that can light up? Xiao Tan hesitated for a few seconds before switching on the light on his miner's hat. Feng Bujue took out a flashlight. I have one too. Mario walked over and took a closer look. You actually have such sophisticated parts. He looked at the two with suspicion. What's the power source? Clockwork? Pull rings? Or do you have lithium batteries hidden in your stomach? Solar power. Feng Bujua's ability to lie was not for show. Our outer shell is made of a special material that can store energy when standing under the sun. Oh, I know. It's like the solar power game Peripheral for GBA. Nintendo's famous crappy Peripheral was released with the GBA game My Son. Players can only play GBA under the direct sunlight during the day, and the characters in the game can recharge their ammo, Mario replied. Yes, that's it. Feng Bujua took the opportunity to answer. So it's not that great of a device. Mario seemed to believe it. He immediately turned around and led the two of them forward. After passing through a relatively dark area, they came to a space that was surrounded by boxes on three sides. There was a Nintendo rug on the floor, another crappy peripheral, but it could be considered the ancestor of dance rugs, and there was an on flashlight, normal size, in the corner. On top of the rug, there were 20 to 30 characters that belonged to or were related to Nintendo. Most of them were plastic toys, and only a few of them had metal and electronic parts on them. Who are these two guys? The one who said this was a robot-shaped toy. Every word that came out of its mouth was the first sound. Are you Wall-E, a virtual robot created by Pixar? Xiaoten looked at him and asked. Indeed, this robot looked very similar to Wall-E. However, his color was grayish-white instead of yellow-black. Another difference was that Wall-E's chassis had tracks on both sides, but this robot's chassis seemed to only allow it to stand. Go to hell. The robot suddenly flipped out. It obviously didn't have any moving parts, but it jumped up. It also took out a gyroscope-like thing from nowhere and threw it at Xiaotan. The robot was slightly bigger than the players, so the gyroscope-like thing it threw at Xiaotan was about the same size as an umbrella. The plastic gyroscope-like thing was spinning at high speed, and its edge was approaching like a circular saw. It looked like it was going to cut Xiaotan in half. Hiss, puff. After two strange sounds, a tall figure flashed, caught the gyroscope-like thing with one hand, and blocked in front of the two players. Aurora roar. After Donkey Kong, a gorilla that debuted in the 1981 arcade game Donkey Kong, blocked the attack for Xiaotan, he pulled the red tie around his neck with one hand and gestured something with the other. Finally, he used both fists to hit his chest a few times. Grumble, grumble. Feng Bujua looked at the scene in front of him with a pained expression and said in his heart, at least this communication method is more advanced than Ultraman's. Listen, kid, because you don't know the rules, I'll forgive you this time. A humanoid toy wearing a golden mechanical armor, an orange-red helmet, and an impact cannon in its right hand said to Xiaotan. B hates it when people mention that name in front of it. You'd better remember it. The voice under the helmet was obviously a woman. It seemed that the person speaking at this moment was the legendary universe's strongest bounty hunter, Samus Alan, the protagonist of the Metroid series, the earliest female protagonist in the video game industry. Ha ha ha. I'm sorry. Seeing the terror points in the menu slowly fall, Xiaotan apologized with cold sweat on his face, even though he had no idea what he did wrong. So it's R.O.B., one of Nintendo's scariest peripherals, comparable to the speedboard. Feng Bujua's lips twitched. No wonder it looks so familiar. All right, let's ignore these two rookies. Mario looked at the two and said, they haven't gained Optimus Prime's trust, and they might not survive tonight's battle. He raised his voice. Let's get back to the main topic. Let's assign our respective missions. On the other hand, at Novel's camp, in a fortress that was made up of tablets and mechanical parts, hundreds of well-made figurines, perfectly assembled models, remote-controlled pets, and so on were lined up neatly according to their type. Saber, Artoria's original form, Bayonetta, combat leather outfit, and Nukiko, school uniform sword outfit. These three figurines stood on a platform in the middle that was slightly taller than the rest. Behind them stood a giant figurine that was 30 centimeters tall. He stood on a round black skeleton base, and around the base, there was a circle of wavy, frozen ice decorations. His whole body was covered in black armor, and the armor shone with a cold blue light. He was the limited edition figurine that had a pre-order price of $350. Lich King Arthas. Travelers from another dimension. The voice under the helmet was like the voice of death. His pair of pupil-less eyes stared at passing rain and laughing soul below the stage. I temporarily hand over my army to you. I hope you won't disappoint me. Chapter 358. Midnight, 12:30 a.m., the first floor of Everything Supermarket, the frozen food counter. The long counter for dairy products and frozen drinks was lined up against the wall. The height of the counter was about 1 meter from the ground. At this moment, Feng Bujue and Wang Tanji, who were the vanguard, were walking on this edge. From their perspective, the path in front of them was not too narrow. It was about the size of a single plank bridge that could allow 2 people to walk side by side. On the left side of the bridge, there were low-temperature containers filled with cold air. Many cartons of milk were lined up neatly like buildings facing the street. On the right side of the bridge, there was a huge drop, close to 1 meter, more than 10 times their height. The lights in the low-temperature containers ensured the visibility of the area. Of course, they were not specifically used for lighting, so most of the corners were still covered in shadows. Standing at the edge of the containers and looking down, one could see the entire Nintendo assault team from Classic. Nintendo's toys, except for the larger ones that could move like heavy weapons, such as Obi, all of them sat on the Octagon tank. There were 3 models of these 8-bit tanks. The first model was the NES. Actually, it was the American version of the Nintendo Entertainment System. It was just a game console released in the 1990s, but its name was more high-end and classy than some of today's second-generation consoles. It was square in shape, and the base was a few centimeters narrower than the top half. The color was white on the top and gray on the bottom, and the cartridge was inserted horizontally into the body of the tank. The second model was the FC, Nintendo Entertainment System. The full name was Family Computer. The name did not live up to its name. It had a red and white appearance and was smaller than the NES. The cartridge was inserted vertically. The third model was the Little Tyrant, a classic example of a counterfeit turning the tables on the original. The phrase "Little Tyrant has endless fun" at the start of the game was also a milestone in brainwashing marketing. It had a black exterior with a golden logo, 2 boxing gloves touching each other. Its size was between the NES and the FC. It also had a unique circular reset button and a self-closing dust-proof panel. It was domineering. At this time, there were about 30 to 40 8-man tanks in a goose formation, slowly advancing. Among them, NES and FC each occupied half of the units. There was only one Little Tyrant, which was located at the back of the team and was controlled by the brothers Mario and Luigi. And the way these tanks were operated was by the characters sitting on them, using a controller to control them. As for its operating principle and driving force, they were all unknown. Your detection specialization is stronger than mine, so you should be able to see further, Feng Bujue said to Xiao Tan without turning his head as he walked in front. I'm looking at it, Xiao Tan replied. Unfortunately, due to his poor eyesight, he could only see a very limited area. We haven't found any enemies yet. To be honest, it's very dangerous for us right now, Feng Bujue said. It's understandable for the vanguard to occupy the high ground and scout the enemy situation. But, he paused for a moment, we're exposed near the light source, and we're in such a high position with almost no cover around us. What if we're spotted by the enemy sniper? You're right, Xiao Tan reacted quickly. Furthermore, Laughing Soul knows that you have Artemis Embrace, so it's hard to kill you in one shot. She'll definitely target me first. Other than that, I'm more concerned about, from the very beginning, the 2 of us have been stuck in a fixed plot, and we've slowly become cannon fodder for the Classic camp, Feng Bujue said. This arrangement to be the vanguard, no matter how you look at it, it's a suicide mission. What does that mean? Xiao Tan asked. If Passing Rain and Laughing Soul receive the same treatment from the novel camp, then I'm being paranoid, Feng Bujue said darkly. But I seriously suspect we've been given special treatment by the system. Xiao Tan added, You mean the bad attitude of the NPCs toward us is caused by the system? No, this is not just an issue of attitude. Feng Bujue wagged his finger. Looking at it from a broader perspective, what the system controls is the so-called influence. He explained, it can allow the players to easily obtain the resources in the scenario and use the influence to do what they want. It can also create some trouble for the players so that they'll have to spend more effort on the operation. Then, after Xiao Tan heard that, he asked a very boring question. Do you have a grudge against the system? I'm too lazy to answer such an ignorant question, Feng Bujue said. What I want to say is, this reminds me of a post I've read on the forum. The title was something like Exploring the Hidden Rules of the Scenario. Is it reliable? Xiao Tan asked. That's just the conclusion of a player's gaming experience. It's not an academic paper. Whether it's reliable or not, you'll have to decide for yourself. Feng Bujue used the tone of an elder trying to reason with a child. You can't do without both practice and thought. Okay, then what's the content of the post? Xiao Tan asked. There's quite a lot of content, but most of them are hypotheses that can't be verified with the player's identity. Feng Bujue replied. One of the paragraphs mentioned that, in a killing game that starts with a challenge, there's a hidden principle of benefit to the one who accepts the challenge. He paused for a second before continuing in detail. For example, let's say there are two players, A and B, and A is stronger than B. Then, when A challenges B in a 1v1 killing game, after entering the scenario, the system will give you a certain amount of influence or increase the difficulty for A to gain influence. When B challenges A, the scenario will continue to progress as expected. In other words, the party that accepts the challenge will be the one that benefits more. Xiao Tan followed his brother Bujue's train of thought. If the challenger is stronger, the party that accepts the challenge will be treated better. If the challenger is weaker, the party that accepts the challenge will not be at a disadvantage. Yes, Feng Bujue said. So, if this hidden rule really exists, then, as the invitee of this 2v2 battle, it would explain why we're in such a passive position. Wait a minute, doesn't that mean? Xiao Tan was shocked. The system has determined that we're stronger than Xiaoling and Sister Rain? Humph, I can deal with them alone. To his surprise, Feng Bujue replied in an incredibly calm tone. Hey, even though it's impressive that you're ranked second on the combat stat ranking, don't you think you're being a bit too arrogant? Xiao Tan mocked. Are you two done chatting? Suddenly, another voice rang out. Following the voice, they saw a small black person appear on the milk carton beside them. It was the Codeman. As a unique 2D character, one of his powers was that he could move freely on various surfaces. Is there anything you can report to me? No, as Xiao Tan answered. He used his finger to point at the outside of the container. Look, there's no sign of any other toys, and the back of the container at the front is completely black. Strange. We've already crossed the danger line 3 minutes ago, the Codeman grumbled. Then he raised his voice and said, Fine, continue to move forward with caution. If there's anything, give us a signal. After giving the order, he slid down the wall and down the container. Understood, sir. Feng Bujue replied in a fake tone as he watched the Codeman move away. Several seconds later, Xiao Tan said, That was an obvious hint, wasn't it? Yes, I'm afraid there will be. Before Feng Bujue could finish, a loud roar came from underneath the container. Enemy attack. Xiao Tan's terror points rose slightly, and he looked around nervously. Brother Ju was the calmer one. He turned to look at the toy that was howling, Diddy Kong, a monkey wearing a red hat. Different from Donkey Kong, he could speak. He saw Diddy jumping on the NES and reaching out his arm to point into the air. Tat, tat, tat. At that moment, a strange sound echoed in the air. From behind a tall shelf on the southwest side, several Lego helicopters appeared. Inside each helicopter's cockpit, there was a mini-figurine. It's one thing to use an 8-dimensional machine as a means of transportation, but what the hell is with a Lego plane that can fly? Feng Bujue said. It looked like he still needed some time to accept this setting, but the battle would not stop because of that. Slow down. Maintain formation. Large toys protect the flanks. Ranged units prepare to counterattack. Mario lived up to his reputation as the highest commander of Nintendo's assault team. He did not panic in the face of battle and quickly gave out a series of orders. Roar! Donkey Kong raised his head and roared. He charged forward and stood at the front of the team. He used his fists to pound on his muscular chest as if to show off his strength to the enemy. From the perspective of a toy, this gorilla was indeed very bold, full of strength, and its movements were not slow. Poo pew pew. The helicopter opened fire mercilessly, and pieces of Lego bombs flew through the air. Samus and Locke's people, who were riding on the tanks, reacted the fastest. They raised the shot cannons on their arms to fire back. The bullets they fired were really laser bullets. Hey, this is already beyond the limits of the toy's capabilities on a physical level. Fong Bujua had thought that a toy fight would be a close-range brawl. At most, they would throw things like R.O.B. For him and Xiao Tan, the main range threat came from Laughing Soul and Passing Rain. But in actual combat, that was not the case. Both Classic and Novel had reliable long-range firepower, and they even had air units. Brother Bujua, how about we go down from here first, before they notice us? Xiao Tan gave a very good suggestion. That's what I was thinking. Retreat. Before he finished, Fong Bujua leaped down the side of the container. With Jeppo, as long as the accumulated momentum did not exceed the limit of the skill, there was no chance of him falling to his death. Seeing this, Xiao Tan followed. Using his title skill, he could run down the wall of the container. It was easier than Fong Bujua. But just as they approached the ground, Novel's high-speed ground unit arrived as well. They charged out from the side of a large freezer. That black mass, at a glance, was filled with Gundams. Chapter 359. The members of this team were basically from the MG series. They had a ratio of 100 to the actual Gundam, so most of them were about 20 centimeters tall. Thankfully, these guys did not rely on flight or levitation to propel themselves. Instead, they used their legs to run, or else their mobility would be too scary. Even so, the Gundams were still closing in on the two players at a speed visible to the naked eye. At that moment, Brother Ju and Xiao Tan were about 30 centimeters above the ground. One was running along the wall of the cupboard, and the other was falling. Seeing this, Fong Bujue reacted quickly and yelled, "Turn!" Then, he used Jeppo and midair and made a 90-degree turn. While maintaining his altitude, he leaped to the side. Even though Brother Ju only said one word, Xiao Tan understood it immediately. The two had played many games together since they were young, so this level of chemistry was nothing to scoff at. Xiao Tan twisted his body and made a turn on the wall with ease. Then, he was running horizontally. Our vanguard escaped really fast. McCloud from Star Fox, who was riding on an NES tank, sneered at Mario, who was not far away. A trace of disdain flashed through his green eyes. Mario also saw the two running from above. He said darkly, "At least this proves that they're not spies sent by Novel." "I see. So this is Optimus Prime's intention. If the two of them are spies..." Mario immediately realized something, and he quickly ordered, "Stop the advance. Cover the two rookies. Turn and retreat." This was clearly a well-trained and battle-hardened team. Although the situation before them seemed to be evenly matched, when Mario's voice sounded, everyone decisively carried out the orders to cover and retreat. No one questioned the commander's orders, and no one hesitated or continued to fight. At the same time, in the shadow of the two containers, Laughing Soul stood at the front of a shopping cart. She held a telescope with night vision and observed the battle afar. "TSK, that plumber uncle is quite alert," she said unhappily. "Did you reveal any flaws?" Passing Rain sat not far from her and asked casually. "That's unlikely. We're still far from the planned location," Laughing Soul replied. In other words, the tactic that Laughing Soul had set up was a pocket tactic. In fact, it was very simple. There were a total of 3 steps. First, set up an ambush circle with 3 sides. Second, lure the enemy in. Third, close the door and attack. However, when it came to the actual implementation, the situation would be more complicated. If they wanted to succeed, they had to take the psychological factors of the enemy into consideration. At such a time, the usual method was to use a small force to feign an attack. After the initial clash, they would be defeated and then lure the enemy to pursue an attack. However, Laughing Soul knew that even if this method could fool the commanding officer of Classic, it would not fool Fong Bujue. Laughing Soul and Passing Rain thought that the boys would be treated the same as them in Classic. They did not expect it to be so bad. Therefore, she used an even more daring method. She used nearly half of her forces as bait and split the remaining forces into two flanks, leaving only herself, Passing Rain, and their personal guards for powerful figurines at the rear. In other words, the pocket that Laughing Soul prepared for the Nintendo assault team. One of the three sides was alive. It was different from a normal ambush circle, where the ambush team did not move and only sent out a few feints to lure the enemy. The force that she used as bait were all highly mobile units like the Air Force and Gundam models. These units could leave the circle at any time, and it would be hard for them to be caught by the enemy. As long as they fought and retreated, there was a high chance that the enemy would be pushed into the trap. Then, have you seen the two of them? Passing Rain asked again. Compared to the side quest, their side quest was similar to the other sides, just that they were from different factions. She was more interested in the duel between the players. Yes, I saw them, Laughing Soul replied. I'm surprised that they are at the front as scouts. She paused and said with annoyance, such a shame. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have come up with any strategy. I would have had the unit attack them directly, and I would have found a random spot to ambush them. That is weird, Passing Rain said darkly. Bujue is not the kind of person who likes to charge into battle. Could it be that he wants to lead Xiao Tan into more battles? That is possible, Laughing Soul said. But the leader is now a monster ranked second on the combat stat ranking. It is hard to tell how powerful he is. So, no matter what is happening on their side, we must not hold back. Of course, Passing Rain replied. Passing Rain replied. Even if there's no AFK-like setting, I'll get my all. Sha. Chi. Sir, the enemy has retreated back to their territory. Requesting orders. A muffled voice came from the walkie-talkie next to Laughing Soul, and there was the sound of gunfire on the battlefield in the background. We should retreat as well. The night is still young. Laughing Soul picked up the walkie-talkie and gave the order. Several seconds later, she gave a long sigh and suddenly raised her voice. Everyone, I have a mission for you. On top of one of the shelves nearby, a voice came back. Huh, finally we can go kill people? With the protection of Nintendo's assault team, Fong Bujue and Wang Tanji retreated unscathed. Since they were retreating and not retreating, the classic toys were relatively calm and did not suffer any serious damage. On the way back to the base, the two players were discussing the battle earlier. The battle setting in this scenario is quite interesting. Fong Bujue commented, the bullets that were shot out, be it physical or energy, did not cause any damage to the surrounding environment. But the toys can cause damage to each other. If even the environment can be damaged, then the tiles, walls, shelves, and even the merchandise in this mall will be shot into sieves the next day. Xiao Tan added, in that case, the toy war will be exposed soon. Actually, I think this kind of thing should have been exposed in a day. Fong Bujue said, but from the behavior of these toys, the war has been going on for a long time. That is strange. Huh? Why would it have been exposed in a day? Xiao Tan asked with confusion. Fong Bujue pointed upward. A supermarket of this size has no reason not to have surveillance cameras. Hearing that, Xiao Tan raised his head to look. But as mentioned earlier, due to the high ceiling, without proper lighting, with the sneaky light source of the toys, the shrunken players were unable to see the ceiling. You have a point. According to the scenario introduction, this is the 22nd century. By then, the surveillance cameras would have night vision and sound reception, Xiao Tan said. Fong Bujue added, also, even though the environment is not damaged after the war, there are so many building blocks and broken pieces left behind on the ground. As time passes, the cleaners would have noticed. He shrugged. Needless to say, these toys themselves are commodities. If they're damaged or missing, they will be exposed sooner or later. While they were talking, they suddenly heard, ding! Along with this familiar sound effect, Mario jumped high from the little tyrant, drawing a high parabola in the air before landing beside the two players. Hey, you two, come with me, Mario said as he pointed to the west side of the mall. Phone Bujua looked back at the tank unit and asked, Are we not going back with the main force? I have communicated with Optimus Prime. He has gone to the first core command post in the audiovisual area. Come with me to see him now, Mario said. By the way, are you two injured? Do you need emergency repairs? The cute uncle reached for the wrench in his pocket as he spoke. Seeing this, Xiao Tan quickly said, It's fine, it's fine. We're doing great. Oh, let's go then. 10 minutes later, the three of them had traveled about 200 meters and arrived at the command post of the First Corps. Along the way, Feng Bujue clearly noticed the presence of some hidden sentries. It seemed that the concept of territory in this war was fully implemented. Wherever one was in the controlled area, one would be under the surveillance of that side. Finally, they were stopped by two Transformer Sentinels outside an isolation zone surrounded by electric wires. Password, Ironhide said in a meticulous tone. Get lost, Mario said. Please, Optimus Prime is waiting for you. Ironhide replied nonchalantly. Hey, the password is get lost. Xiaoten took 5 seconds to react. He newbie. The other Sentinel, Cyclonus, sneered. Of course, the harder it is to guess the password, the better. Xiaoten asked again, I say, you guys basically know each other. What is the point of the password? Do you think we will let you go just because we know each other? Cyclonus said. What if you secretly defect to the enemy? Can't you just make up a reason to infiltrate the command post and cause trouble? Oh, that is true. Xiaoten nodded. Okay, newbie, don't disturb them while they are on guard duty, Mario said as he waved his hand to signal the two players to follow. After they entered the audio and video product area, they climbed up a wooden platform, bypassed a few speakers, and saw the members of the First Corps next to a big light bulb. There were 20 to 30 toys of different sizes gathered there, and they were discussing something. Optimus Prime saw Mario and the others come in and silently gestured to them, indicating that they should wait for a while. Feng Bujue was happy to do so. Listening to the conversation of these toys was undoubtedly a good opportunity to obtain information. The members of the First Corps were mostly Transformers. They were both Autobots and Decepticons. He did not know whether to be happy or sad, but in any case, Brother Jew could call out each and every one of their names accurately. The thing that made him feel strange was that Megatron and Galvatron were both present at the same time. Galvatron was originally a heavily injured Megatron, but he was transformed from Megatron. Basically, he was a chaotic and evil thug. Of course, in some of the transmigration works, these two had cooperated in battle before. Based on the reports sent by Mario 10 minutes ago, there were signs of Lego helicopters among the enemy. The intelligence analyst, Shockwave, was speaking, combined with the Lego aircraft carrier incident at the bathroom. I believe that Lego, who has been neutral in the past, has joined Novel's side. Humph. Those little pieces of Denmark, I have long disliked them. Grimlock, the commander of the Autobot robot army, always referred to himself as me. But they are indeed a force that should not be underestimated. Starscream, a despicable careerist, personally felt that his name could be translated as Starscream, but the name Starscream was a mark of the times. Just like Piccolo and Piccolo, it was fine to get used to it. In fact, it might even change the whole situation of the war. Perhaps, Jazz added, we can go and confirm it. He paused. Go to the Lego house to confirm it in person. Chapter 360. Optimus Prime then told Jazz, I will leave this to you, Jazz. After the meeting is over, you will depart. He turned around. Night beat. You and Jazz will go together. That way, you can look out for each other. He paused before continuing. Before we move on to the next topic, there is an emergency that I think we should deal with first. As Optimus Prime spoke, he turned his gaze to Mario and the two players and said, "The two of you, please stand in the middle of us." Brother Ju and Xiao Tan had no choice. They shared a look and walked forward. After they stood still, Optimus Prime asked, "What are your names?" Feng Bujue, Wang Tanji. They gave their in-game nicknames. The toys did not react much to these nicknames. It was as if the two before them had given out two very normal nicknames. This was obviously due to the system's modification, and it was expected. Normally, no matter what kind of online game it was, the player's ID would not affect the interaction between them and the NPC. For example, even if the player's ID was sh*t, after logging into the game, the NPC in the newbie village would smile at the player and say, "Is your name sh*t? That is a good name." Gentlemen, based on Mario's report, I have basically ruled out the possibility that you are spies from Novel, Optimus Prime said. Optimus Prime said, "But this doesn't mean that I believe what you said earlier, unless you can provide more concrete evidence to prove that the two powerful and evil threats really exist." "That will not be difficult," Feng Bujue replied seriously. "I believe you will soon meet them on the battlefield." He added, "Their size should be about the same as ours, and they are humanoid in appearance. Furthermore, they can take out various weapons and equipment from their bodies. The key thing is they are very intelligent. Forgive me for being blunt, but none of the novel commanders that you have encountered in the past were as cunning as them." "Is that so? Then what about you two?" Optimus Prime asked. "Who are you? Why did you join Classic?" "Of course it's because my admiration for you is like the endless, torrential river, like the overflowing yellow river that can't be stopped." Feng Bujue's expression didn't change as he shamelessly said. Bumblebee laughed dryly and said, "Are you trying to insult our intelligence or show us how shameless you are with such an answer?" All right. I'll be honest. We're all travelers from another universe. For some reason, both sides have to fight to the death." Feng Bujue explained, "So, after they joined Novel, the enemy of our enemy is naturally our friend." His words were half true and half false, but they sounded more believable. "Humph." Jing Patian sneered and squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. "In other words, you want to use us to kill your mortal enemy. You can understand it that way." Feng Bujue did not deny it. "But you have to admit that this is a win-win situation." "No. If you can help Classic, then it is a win-win situation," Red Spider said in a low voice. Red Spider said in a gloomy tone, "But if the two of you are useless, I personally think that you should be handed over as bargaining chips. Maybe those two powerful and evil fellows will get what they want and won't get involved in this war anymore." As he finished, Xiao Tan whispered to Brother Ju, "This man sure is a genius, haha." Feng Bujue suddenly guffawed. The toys were startled. They had no idea what the man was up to. Only Xiao Tan knew that this was all a bluff. Brother Ju was using his laughter to come up with some kind of scheme in his mind. Feng Bujue laughed for 5 seconds before he came up with a plan. He put on an arrogant expression and said, "So be it. I forgive your ignorance and rudeness." He paused. "Even though it sounds like I'm blowing my own trumpet, I have to say it now. In my universe, I am the disciple of the famous military strategist, Aaron Smith. Aaron Smith was a pseudonym created by the Directors Guild of America from 1968 to 2000 for directors who did not want to admit that they were the originators of their work. Hey, how come I've not heard of something like this before?" Xiao Tan thought. These NPCs are obviously not that dumb. Adding random settings might backfire on us. I've served as a scout, spy, warrior, and adjutant. I've also participated in and commanded large-scale battles. Feng Bujue continued in a confident tone. "It's just that I'm new here, and I'm not familiar with the battlefield in your universe. Plus, I've been used as cannon fodder by you, so I haven't had a chance to show off." Optimus Prime understood the meaning behind those words. "Even though it sounds like you're blowing your own trumpet to me. But it's true that we've misunderstood you at the beginning, and I've also done something wrong." He thought for a few seconds. "Since you've said that, how about this?" He turned to look at Jazz and Nightbeat. "Jazz, Nightbeat, when you go to the Lego house later, bring these two otherworldly visitors with you. See if they can be of any help. Yes, sir. Jazz answered immediately. He did not question his leader's orders. Optimus Prime turned to Feng Bujue and Xiao Tan. Jazz and Nightbeat are both excellent scouts. I hope the two of you can be as smart and sharp as you claim. Don't drag them down. At this point in the conversation, a system notification rang in the ears of the two players. Side quest has been triggered. They opened a menu. Under the original side quest, a new quest appeared. Assist Jazz and Nightbeat in investigating the Lego house. I've given you the chance. Based on the result of this investigation, I'll give you the corresponding role, Optimus Prime said. Red Spider added with a wicked smile. If you mess this up, then the title of the role will be Bargaining Chip. Can you not always add a malicious threat to your superior's words and end it with a sinister smile? Wei Zhentian actually followed up and complained. At the same time, in the neutral zone, 5 meters away from the Lego house, members of Novel had arrived. The 4 figurines were all swordsmen. The first one wore a red kimono. He had long orange hair, a cross scar on his left cheek, and a reverse blade sword hung from his waist. The second one wore a dark green kimono. His hair was green, and he wore a black turban. There was a scar over his left eye, and he had 3 swords hanging from his waist. The third one wore a black European-style uniform. He had short brown hair and a handsome face. Other than the sword, he carried a rocket launcher. The fourth one wore a dark blue light armor. His blonde hair fell over his shoulders. He was handsome and carried a glowing sword. They were both strategists, but the amount of information that Laughing Soul received from Novel and Brother Jew was like heaven and earth. Laughing Soul had basically gotten all the details of this war. Naturally, this included the relationship between the two parties and the neutral zone. Therefore, she could predict that after tonight's battle, no matter the result, the Lego helicopter's participation in the battle would prompt Classic to make a move. Therefore, Laughing Soul sent out the personal guards that Lich King had assigned to her in passing reign. She had them wait at the Lego house. She predicted that, be it for investigation or negotiation, Classic would not send a small fry to the Lego house. It was more likely that they would send a commander. With the power of the 4 personal guards, it would not be difficult to capture someone alive. After they captured the person, even if they could not get information about Xiao Tan's group, they would at least be able to get some information about their situation in the enemy camp. Of course, Laughing Soul also considered the possibility that Brother Jew and Xiao Tan would personally go to the Lego house. Therefore, she gave the personal guards another order. If they discovered the 2 humanoids in the enemy camp, they were to kill them on the spot. Chapter 361. After the discussion at the first unit was over, Feng Bujue's group followed the 2 transformers and departed. As the saying went, a transformer that could not transform was not a good transformer. As traditional toys, and not figurines, Jazz and Nightbeat had the ability to transform into cars. Even though their structure was not that precise and could not allow the players to sit inside the car, they could carry people on top of the car. Therefore, Jazz volunteered for the 2 players to sit on top of his and Nightbeat's car to save time. Brother Jew and Xiao Tan naturally did not reject. After being shrunk to the size of toys, the distance of several dozen meters was measured in kilometers for them. Naturally, he would save as much energy as he could on the way. Therefore, about 10 minutes later, the 2 players were sitting in the car. They sped through several hundred meters and arrived at the Lego house. Actually, the Lego house was a display area located in the middle of the Lego section. The shelves outside the display area were piled with all kinds of unopened Lego blocks. The display area itself was a square room surrounded by glass walls. A city made from Lego blocks was placed inside the room. The buildings, roads, cars, decorations, characters, and so on, they were all weirdly shaped and colorful. This kind of display was quite attractive. Even adults would have the urge to buy it, much less children. Jazz slowed down outside the Lego house and said through the car's speaker, "Let's start walking from here." Nightbeat, who was following behind, also stopped. Feng Bujue did not ask. He gave Xiao Tan a look, and the 2 jumped down from the car. 2 seconds later, Jazz and Nightbeat turned back into robots. Their human form was not as big as Optimus Prime, but they were still taller than the players. After Jazz finished his transformation, he said, "We'll have to play it by ear. If LEGO has really formed an alliance with Novel, then we might be ambushed once we reach the entrance." "That is not the worst-case scenario," Nightbeat added. "If they make their stance clear and attack us, then it will be easier for us to retreat. I'm just afraid that they'll try to trick us into their lair first, and then catch us like a turtle in a jar," Xiaotan interjected. "If you compare us like that, wouldn't we be turtles?" Feng Bujue said. "Oh, then, close the door and beat the dog," Xiaotan said again. "Although your words are getting more and more apt, I personally suggest that you don't try to use idioms in the future." Feng Bujue held his forehead with one hand and shook his head. Chi. At this moment, a sword aura pierced through the air. This attack was as powerful as a ferocious tiger. For some reason, Feng Bujue felt a sense of déjà vu towards this move. Night and Night Patrol reacted quickly. They even had the strength to grab two players and hide together. After the slash, Xiaotan was still in a state of shock and was at a loss of what to do. Night Patrol beside him said darkly, "Focus, newbie. The enemy seems to have sent a very powerful character. 1/ Bird of Doom." After these few seconds, Feng Bujue finally remembered the name of this skill and where he had seen this skill before. However, this slash, be in terms of power, speed, or power, was stronger than the slash that Blade Runner had used. "Humph! You dodged it, huh?" Zoro put Autumn Blade back into its sheath and walked out from the shadow, half a meter away. No wonder they are Night and Night Patrol. Consider this a greeting. "Hey, a super scary character has arrived." Xiaotan gasped. "He is just a figurine about the same size as us, but he managed to unleash an attack that is as powerful as a one-time consumable skill." Even Feng Bujue was having trouble keeping his cool. And why would he suddenly appear here? Could it be, "You must be the one called Feng Bujue"? Zoro slowly walked toward Brother Ju. His right hand was casually resting on the hilt of his sword. He looked like he was taking a stroll, but in reality, every step he took was filled with murderous intent. "I hear you are an expert." "Ha, an expert." Feng Bujue laughed drily. "This misunderstanding will be resolved when I turn and run. Zoro shook his head slightly. "The wound on the back is the shame of a swordsman." "I am not a swordsman, I am a gentleman." Feng Bujue narrowed his eyes as he replied. At this time, Night Patrol interrupted their conversation and said to Zoro, "Even though you are an idiot, since you have already seen me and Night, and you still dare to show yourself, that means..." Night Patrol looked around. "You're not the only one here, right?" His speculation was correct. Just as he finished, a red figure walked out from behind a shelf on the other side. "I do not wish to kill, but due to the mission, I have to come to your aid." Kenshin had no murderous intent, and he looked harmless. "So, please do not cross the line in front of me." "I don't really want to use violence, but a mission is a mission. As long as we get rid of those two little brothers from another world, it'll be fine." A third voice sounded out, and Gori appeared opposite Kenshin with the Sword of Light in his hand. Ha! There is no need for that." Feng Bujue's lips twitched. He turned his head and looked in the fourth direction. "We have been surrounded." Indeed, the fourth swordsman had appeared. "Actually, I only want to kill two Feng-sen." Sogu mumbled weakly. Seeing this lineup, Xiaotan took a few steps to Feng Bujue's side and whispered, "What is this one of the four famous swords of it? If it is 4 against 4, we are obviously at a disadvantage." Feng Bujue added, "How about escaping through the air?" Xiaotan asked quietly, "Your Jeppo should be fine for you to carry someone, right?" "I can carry someone, but if we go through the air..." Feng Bujue rejected. "Even if our jumping power can get rid of Zoro's slash and Sogu's rocket launcher, but..." He looked at Gorley. "The Sword of Light is very troublesome." He paused. "To be honest, among the 4 of them, Gorley is the one who poses the greatest threat to me. Purely from the point of view of destructive power, Kenshin and Sogu's combat power is equal to 100 people, and Zoro is almost at the level of barehanded dismantling. But Gorley, a man who does not know magic at all, and whose IQ is close to a jellyfish, has fought with great sages, high-level demons, and even demon kings many times. That sword is something that can send out shock waves with a casual swing, and can even destroy spiritual bodies. Now that you mention it, aren't we dead meat? Xiao Tan replied. Feng Bujue thought about it and said, there is no need to admit defeat before the fight. After all, the opponent is just a figurine, and he might not be as strong as he is in the original work. Furthermore, the purpose of the internal practice battle is to let you fight a few more battles with humanoid opponents, right? The current situation is a good opportunity. You have a point, Xiao Tan said, and a serious expression appeared on his face. He took out the energy-storing tri-edge bayonet from his inventory. Before the scenario, Feng Bujue had given him the new bayonet. Then let's give it a try. Chapter 362. Have you finished your discussion? Zoro was getting impatient. There are 4 people on each side. There's no need to make it so complicated. If Amira Sr. is not willing to fight, then I'll fight 2-on-1. Then count me in as well. Sogu said weakly. Zoro-san, aren't you a Sans Ho? You should be able to fight 3-on-1. What are you doing? Zoro shouted, hey, why did you put on a blindfold? Even if you look down on your opponent, you don't have to lie down and sleep. I don't know why, but when I hear your voice, I have a bad feeling. Sogu actually laid down on his side and started to nap with one hand on his neck. There are 2 people who don't want to fight. Feng Bujue mumbled, but his gaze was still on Gory. Unfortunately, there's still one more troublesome person. Hey, do you think I'm dead? Zoro roared. Feng Bujue continued to ignore Zoro. He turned to tell Xiao Tan and the 2 Transformers, don't worry about that green algae head. After we deal with Gory, we'll find a place with a wall and we'll be able to shake him off. So, the figurine that says he can't go out alone because he will definitely get lost is him. I thought it was just some kind of urban legend. Who would have thought that it really exists? You think I can't hear you? I'll kill you. Veins popped on Zoro's forehead. Nightbeat added, with the GPS system, it's indeed hard for us to understand this feeling. What kind of GPS is a plastic product? Zoro could not take it anymore. He pulled out his sword. Dual blade stream, eagle wave. He pulled out his sword so fast that it was hard to follow with the naked eye. As the 2 swords left their sheaths, he spun on the spot and threw out 2 white mist-like shockwaves that charged at the 4 classic members. Jazz took a step forward and used his body to shield his friends. With a wave of his arm, the shockwaves were dispersed. This kind of attack is only powerful enough to topple the small fries. To us Cybertans, it's like scratching an itch through our boots. Light! Gory's voice suddenly rang out. Get down! Feng Bujue shouted almost at the same time. Xiao Tan was very obedient and immediately lay down. Jazz and Night Patrol completed their transformation at high speed and spread out to the sides with the acceleration of the vehicle state. In the next second, the sword of light that Gory held horizontally at his side gushed out with intense light from its hilt, blasting out a diffuse beam cannon. Its shape was like a flash of light, and its power was even greater than the sword of light. Fortunately, Feng Bujue reminded them in time, and they managed to avoid it. Jinshin, who was standing on the opposite side of Gaoli, also hurriedly moved a few steps to the side, narrowly avoiding being affected. Even he heaved a long sigh and said, Phew, that was close, that was close. You 3 go deal with Gory. I'll deal with Zoro. Now that we have the advantage in numbers, we have an advantage in close combat. Feng Bujue got up from the ground and rushed toward Zoro. When did this kid become a commander? Night Patrol said. Although he said that, he still did as he was told. Jazz shrugged and also rushed toward Gory with Night Patrol and Xiao Tan. Since his countermeasure sounds good, let's do it. On Zoro's side. Although Feng Bujue said, I'll deal with Zoro, when he really stood in front of the other party, his confidence had mostly disappeared. The oppressive aura exuded by this one-eyed swordsman was comparable to that of Nobita Mountain. Zoro's 3rd sword, Wado Ikamanji, had not been unsheathed. Just the two blades in his hands, Sandaime Ghost Blade, Black Blade, Autumn Water, and a simple stance made Brother Ju feel helpless. No matter how many attacks Feng Bujue used his souls to calculate, the predicted result was that he would be hacked to death. "What's wrong?" Zoro said. "You came to me just to stand there like an idiot?" His right hand moved slightly. "Our boss said that you're an expert that we need to pay attention to." Could it be that he made a mistake? Whiz before his voice fell. Two light cards suddenly flew past Zoro's cheeks. "You can even dodge like that." Feng Bujue muttered with some annoyance. How could Brother Ju just stand there like an idiot? This guy couldn't find a flaw in Zoro's defense. So he quietly took out Death Poker from his sleeve and launched an attack without warning. These two cards went toward both sides of Zoro's neck. The flying distance was short, the speed was extremely fast, and there was no warning when they attacked. Unexpectedly, they were dodged by Zoro with a slightly backward posture. A mere figurine still retains the setting of observation haki, can strongly feel the power of the surrounding aura, and can sense the enemy outside the line of sight or further predict the opponent's actions. Feng Bujue said. Zoro laughed. "You know quite a lot." "I know quite a lot, too," Feng Bujue replied, and threw a side kick. An arc-shaped chop swept out. Its height was almost the same as Zoro's abdomen, and its width was enough. Due to the short distance, even if Zoro predicted it, he wouldn't be able to avoid it. Boring. Zoro squatted down slightly and slashed horizontally with his blade. The blade aura coincided perfectly with the slash from Brother Ju's Rankyaku. After the two clashed, they disappeared into thin air. I have fought with the user of the six styles so many times that I have lost count. Your weak Rankyaku won't be able to hurt me. This is too much. Feng Bujue was sweating. He thought to himself, this kind of character can't be defeated with fighting mastery, right? Be it the prediction ability, strength, speed, stamina, battle experience, or battle instinct, they are all top-notch. We don't have any shooting specialization players or long-range heavy firepower weapons. If we want to win, we can only rely on equipment, sorcery, or summoning skills. Feng Bujue's thoughts were very fast, and countless ideas flashed through his mind. But Zoro's attack didn't wait for anyone. Since the two swords were out of their sheaths, they must see blood. Two swords, magic bear. Zoro's shadow was fast, and his killing intent was obvious. Zoro instantly appeared where Feng Bujue was standing, holding the hilt with both hands, and slashed vertically. But Feng Bujue was already in the air. Zoro naturally knew where Zoro went. He immediately straightened up and looked up at the figure in the air that was faintly emitting crimson energy. He sneered and said, "This move that increases speed is quite like someone's second gear." Feng Bujue turned around in midair and used Jeppo several times to rush down. His momentum was like a falcon pouncing on a rabbit. Southern Dipper, Flying Dragon Fist, was ready to be used. It seems like he's going to use something. Zoro's expression was cold. But I'm very confident in my armament haki. It can increase defense and act like an invisible armor. It can also evolve into attack power and then compete with devil fruit users. It can even touch the body of a Logia fruit user. Chapter 363. The instinct of a master told Zoro that Feng Bujue's moves were not to be underestimated. Therefore, Zoro launched armament haki in advance, covering his entire upper body with a layer of lead-colored invisible armor, just in case. Dual sword flow. Rhino return. Zoro took half a step back, looked up at the sky, and raised the two swords in his hands, ready to meet the attack. Unexpectedly, something unexpected happened. Feng Bujue, who was charging at Zoro like a missile, suddenly used Jeppo when he was about to clash with his opponent. He leaped to the side and appeared behind Zoro. What's going on? Zoro thought. His posture just now clearly showed that he was going to do something, and there was no fear or hesitation in his eyes. Why did he avoid it? He was slightly startled. Could it be that he has some kind of prediction ability that can predict the result of the attack in advance? Zoro guessed half of it right. One of the reasons why Feng Bujue gave up at the last moment was indeed because he was not optimistic about the result of the confrontation. According to the calculation of souls, even in the state of body enhancement technique, he could at most achieve the effect of injuring the enemy by 1,000 and injuring himself by 800. Another reason why Feng Bujue decided to avoid it was, in this tense battle, in just a few seconds, he had already thought of a plan. Hee ha ha. Feng Bujue suddenly laughed, and his face showed a very annoying expression. It seemed that he was very proud of his idea. Hey, what's wrong with you, kid? Are you out of your mind? Zoro was also confused by his behavior. Feng Bujue ignored him, but silently lifted the body enhancement technique, and the red light around his body dissipated immediately. Zoro turned around, raised his right arm, and pointed the tip of his sword at Feng Bujue. Or have you figured it out and decided to admit defeat and die? No, I'm going to run away. Feng Bujue said, so I came behind you. You want to leave your companions? Oomph. Sauron snorted. And here I thought you were a man with a little backbone. His eyes flashed fiercely. No, I'll be back soon. Feng Bujue said as he took out the anti-gravity gun from his inventory. But you won't be coming back. Huh? What are you going to do with that strange device in your hand? As soon as Sauron said this, he heard a paw sound. In the next second, his face was covered in rotten eggs. Smelly chicken bullet was not an item, but a one-time use skill that could only be activated through a shooting weapon. Of course, when this skill was activated, it would create an egg out of thin air. This skill only consumed 1 point of stamina and did almost no damage. Its only effect was to cause a huge amount of aggro and attract the target to attack you. What is this? It stinks. Sauron wiped his face with his arm, shook his head, and stared at Feng Bujue. What did you suddenly throw at me? You can even predict death poker in time, but you can't dodge this attack. Feng Bujue muttered. Is it because I used the gun? Or is it because the bullet created by this skill can't be dodged at all? It stinks. You brat. I'm going to kill you. A nameless flame rose above his head. Zoro stomped on the ground and leaped into the air, charging at Brother Jew. Whatever, as long as it works. Feng Bujue turned around and ran. Brother Jew knew exactly how fast he could run. Even without using the body enhancement spell, he was already very fast. If he had this kind of speed when he was on Hunter's Island, he would not have been chased so badly by Ford. If it's just running, I still have enough stamina and won't be caught in a short time, Feng Bujue said. After all, Sauron's long-range attacks are only sword energy, not homing missiles. As long as I keep my distance, keep moving, and don't stop to fight with him, it won't be too difficult to avoid those attacks. What's left is, don't run, you bastard. Sauron roared behind him. How dare you throw an egg at me? Do you still want to live to see the sun rise tomorrow? Ha ha. Feng Bujue was worried that the taunting effect of the skill was not enough. In order to further anger Sauron, he laughed arrogantly as he ran. He turned his head and shouted, It's not an egg. It's a rotten egg. Brat, stop right there. Sauron was so angry that the veins on his head were popping out. Have you seen anyone in this world who stops when they hear someone yell stop? Feng Bujue continued to complain. Also, you better pay attention to your wording. You're only a 21-year-old guy, yet you keep saying brat so smoothly. I'm at least 24 years old this year. Do you think you're a 150-year-old girl like Rukia? You know a lot of things. It seems that you've heard the call of Soul Society. Let me send you across the Three Roads River. Watching the two running and chasing, gradually leaving the place, Kenshin still stood in the same place silently with his arms crossed and his eyes closed. Sogu, who was lying on the ground, lifted his blindfold and squinted his eyes. He said weakly to Kenshin in the distance, Ihimura-san, Sauron won't be able to come back, right? That Mr. Feng will probably bring Sauron to a place a little further away, and then casually make 2 turns to throw him off before turning back, Kenshin said, sighing helplessly. What if that Feng Bujue really abandons his friends and runs away alone after shaking off Sauron? Sogu asked. Or perhaps he runs back to get reinforcements and then Reinforcements? Kenshin suddenly interrupted Sogu and slowly opened his eyes. I've been here for a long time. Oh. Sogu was startled before he understood the meaning behind Kenshin's words. TSK. How annoying. Sogu pushed himself up with one hand and stood up. When did Ihimura-san discover this? I noticed it from the beginning, Kenshin replied calmly. Is that why you've been standing there? Sogu asked. Kenshin smiled. I just don't know what those people are up to. So before they show up, I've decided to wait and see to prevent them from ambushing us. Did you hear that? Those from Classic. Sogu raised his voice slightly. You've been discovered. A few seconds later, above the shelf behind Kenshin, four powerful figures suddenly shot out and descended from the sky. On the other side, Xiao Tan's side was also in a fierce battle. Gory's swordsmanship was superb, and his battle experience could be said to be shocking. Regardless of whether it was bandits, sorcerers, knights, magic swordsmen, demons, ogres, or even dragons, he had encountered opponents of all types and sizes. Therefore, facing the pincer attack of two transformers and one player, he could fight with ease with the power of the Blade of Light. On the other hand, Jazz and Nightbeat were having a hard time. Even though the two transformers had shooting weapons, they could only rely on their advantage in size and strength to close the distance. They knew very well that once there was an opening, the Blade of Light in Gory's hand would unleash a wave of beam cannon. In order to not give him time and space to prepare his moves, they had to attack continuously. As for Xiao Tan, he was even more depressed. At the beginning of the battle, he had taken out the Winchester shotgun and tried to shoot Gory at short to medium range. But because Gory's movements were extremely fast and Xiao Tan's marksmanship was only at level E, it led to a situation where all his shots missed. Not only did none of his bullets graze the opponent, but a few shrapnel also accidentally injured his companions. Fortunately, Jazz and Nightbeat had high defense and large bodies, so they didn't care about this level of damage. Seeing that he was getting himself into trouble, Xiao Tan gave up on using firearms and simply used the energy-storing tri-edge bayonet to fight against the opponent. Even though Xiao Tan looked like this, his fighting specialization had reached level C earlier than Brother Ju. Unlike Feng Bujue, Wang Tanji's gaming experience was closer to that of a normal person. According to the more ordinary and common game progression, when a player reached level 10, their main specialization would definitely reach level E. When they reached level 20, they would reach level D, and when they reached level 30, they would naturally reach level C. If it was an expert or a professional player, the speed at which they broke through their specialization would often be faster, reaching it a few levels earlier than the average. There were also very few talented people who could exceed the standard by an entire level. For example, Shadow King, who already had a level B summoning specialization at level 30, and Passing Rain, who had reached level D fighting specialization at level 10 course. Even if they were top experts, other than General, they would at most be proficient in 3 specializations, 1 main and 2.5 main. On the other hand, there were usually only 2 casual players. One was the main force, while the other was just passable. Someone like Feng Bujue was not only rare, but there was no such person except him. Xiao Tan was a typical casual player, but he was quite strong. He had 2 level C specializations when he reached level 30, which meant that he was already ahead of most players at his level. Since this was a scenario based on the overall strength of the players, and Gory was not some kind of final boss, Xiao Tan, who was above average in terms of fighting, had no reason to be helpless against this enemy. With that thought in mind, Xiao Tan abandoned the unnecessary thought and cooperated with Jazz and Nightbeat. He used the mastery that he was most familiar with to deal with the enemy. To be able to fight against Gory, who was so good at swordsmanship, was undeniably a kind of improvement for Xiao Tan. Ever since he entered Thriller Paradise, even though he had not fought many players, he had experienced more battles like this than Feng Bujue. To truly feel the power coming from the weapon, to fully focus on observing the opponent's every move, to exchange blows in a battle where one could be killed at any time, to counter each move as they came. Fighting mastery was gradually raised through countless battles like this. The only difference was that each person had a different level of understanding. Perhaps what a genius could learn from one battle, a normal person would need to experience 10 battles to understand. That was the factor talent. Phew! Thankfully, I got the military knife from Brother Jew. If I used my own Damascus dagger to clash with the Sword of Light, the shop's good would have been destroyed. After a while of fighting, Xiao Tan did not feel like he had much of an advantage in a 3-on-1 situation. As long as he was distracted for a moment, he would be in danger. Without the help of Jazz and Nightbeat, Gory would have used a normal iron sword to beat Xiao Tan to a pulp. Just like that, the two of them fought fiercely, and they had no time to pay attention to anything else. When Xiao Tan finally noticed that his brother Ju and Zoro had disappeared, it was at the same time that Sogu and Kenshin finished their conversation. At that moment, Jazz and Nightbeat's attack suddenly stopped. They both turned around to look at the few shadows that jumped down from the sky. Gory's reaction was half a beat slower. It was not until the opponents before him stopped moving that he said in surprise, "Huh? What's wrong?" He tilted his head and poked it out to look from the side of the two transformers. For tall and sturdy figures stood in a straight line in front of him. They were wearing 4-color eye masks. They each held a pair of swords, a pitchfork, a nunchaku, and a long staff. On their backs were large oval turtle shells. They were Chapter 364. In this day and age where the word God's work was overused, people seem to have forgotten the original meaning of the word. Most of the time, we only used it to express our appreciation or love for a certain work or to tease some unexpected plot. But many years ago, the meaning of the word was much more than that. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was infinitely close to being God. It was born in a golden era. Those were the years when hair dye was still fashionable, disco was everywhere, the special effects of Alien were breathtaking, and the overlord of the console industry was the little tyrant. Those were the years when Jordan looked down on everything. Mr. Ma's guns were still cold, Teresa Tung's voice was still lingering, and Michael Jackson was still black. Those were the years when there was no righteous materialism, and there was no Korea that created the universe. China's men's soccer team was still the best in Asia, and people dared to speak the truth during the New Year's Gala skit. It was a nostalgic era, a very pure era. Once upon a time, the popularity of cars made the city lose its borders. Today, the proliferation of electronic devices didn't bring people closer to each other. The era where families gathered in front of the TV was long gone, and everyone stared blankly at their own small screens had become a daily routine. In an environment where information exchange was extremely convenient, we became even more confused. But in that golden era, things weren't so complicated. The charm of a work could be directly reflected in the ratings. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a work that could make children stay in front of the TV on time. The novel setting, exciting plot, interesting dialogue, and moderate violence, it was only natural that it would become popular. Leonardo, Raphael, Michelangelo, and Donatello. The story of these 4 mutant turtles with different personalities fighting for justice continued for many years. Their footprints were all over comics, TV, the big screen, and games. They even had their own rock band. The actors wore turtle costumes and lip-synced on stage. In the early 90s, when special effects technology was far from mature, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had already made 3 live-action movies. Even in the 21st century, the new anime version of the 2003 version was still very well received. These guys who could do anything naturally had already released toys. As a classic memory of a generation, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would undoubtedly appear in the classic camp. "Hey, what did you guys get here?" Jazz asked loudly. "I've been here long enough." Raphael replied in a low voice. Leonardo added, "Optimus Prime asked us to follow you in secret to provide support." Nightbeat said thoughtfully, as expected of Optimus Prime. He has already considered the possibility of the Lego house breaking off completely with us. With the 4 of you, even if we were trapped in a Lego house, we have a great chance of escaping. I'm afraid that's not all. Xiao Tan suddenly interrupted. Why do I feel like Optimus Prime still doesn't trust me and Brother Jew? That's why he sent someone to follow us in secret to prevent us from doing anything suspicious. It doesn't matter what the order is. Leonardo's answer basically confirmed Xiao Tan's speculation. Indeed, the main reason why Optimus Prime had the turtles follow them was to monitor the travelers from the other world. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, the four of them would absolutely not show themselves. Their original bottom line was that they would only help when Night and Night Patrol were in real danger. But their plan could not keep up with the changes. No one expected Kenshin to be able to sense their presence. Leonardo turned his gaze to Kenshin. Do you mind if I ask, how did you discover us? This was indeed a question that confused the turtles. As ninjas, the turtles' stealth skills were undoubtedly top-notch. When necessary, they could even hold their breath for a long time to hide their presence. Actually, it was not me who discovered you, Kenshin replied. It was that Mr. Feng Bujua. He paused. Perhaps, when you were following him all the way, he had already discovered you. He held his chin and said, when Zoro used one sword style, Bird of Disaster, to test him, Mr. Feng instantly understood the power, speed, and transformations of this skill. Of course, this is nothing. But then, in that split second, he split his attention and glanced in the direction where the four of you were. He wanted to see if you would react to that. As Kenshin spoke, he slowly turned around to face the turtles. If I did not see it with my own eyes, I would not have believed that such a thing could happen in this world. Be it those who fear death or those who seek death, they would not react like that when faced with an attack. But he was able to do that. You are quite impressive as well. Just from that quick glance from Feng Bujue, you were able to sense our location? Leonardo asked. Humph. It's hard not to notice it. Kenshin sighed. Please put yourself in his shoes. If I was in the process of raising my sword to block the attack when the blade was coming at my face, I would take the opportunity to look elsewhere. If you happen to see this, you would be very concerned, right? That might not be true. Feng Bujue's voice suddenly rang out. Everyone turned to look at the source of the voice. Sogu was the first to speak, and he said weakly, You came back faster than I expected. So, you managed to shake us off after just 2 turns. Feng Bujue ignored him and continued to talk to Kenshin. If it was me, when I saw a person with more than 2 wounds on his face, and they were all on the same side, I would speculate that this person would like to look around during battle. Kenshin did not respond to Feng Bujue's joke. He said with a cold expression, Since Mr. Zoro is no longer here, and you have the advantage in numbers, then I will also. Then his hand gripped the hilt of his sword. At that moment, the 4 Ninja Turtle brothers jumped up at the same time and spread out in all directions. Around Kenshin, there seemed to be an invisible circle blooming. Inside this circle was an extremely dangerous area. Only those who had reached a certain level of power would be able to sense the existence of this area. Guys, leave him to me. As the boss of the Ninja Turtles, Leonardo naturally took the most dangerous job for himself. Raphael, Donatello, you two deal with Sogo. Michelangelo, you go help Knight and the others suppress Gory. Finally, I can hit something, Raphael said eagerly. Be careful, brother. That kid is not easy to deal with. Donatello reminded him as he followed. Haha, I'm coming. Michelangelo always seemed happy and excited. He swung his nunchaku and jumped into the battle group on Xiao Tan's side. For a moment, the strength of the 2 sides reversed. Feng Bujue, who returned, seemed a little redundant. A minute ago, on the balcony of a building in the Lego house. Although it was called a balcony, it was actually made of Lego blocks. In this Lego house, there were few non-Legos except for the lighting equipment. At this time, 2 figures were standing on the edge of the balcony, watching the battle outside through the glass wall of the exhibition area. They were Lego Batman and Lego Iron Man. These Lego-like superheroes were naturally cartoonish in appearance. Their limbs and torsos were all made of cuboids, and they had the ratio of 2 heads to 1 body. They were smaller than most humanoid toys of normal proportions, and they looked like children. How long do you think we should wait before stopping them? Tony, Iron Man, said, and his voice sounded overlapping and electronic. It was the kind of voice that came from the real Iron Man armor. Bruce, Batman, pulled a long face and replied, I suggest we stay out of this. This is our Lego sphere of influence. It's not appropriate to keep pretending to be deaf and dumb, Tony said again. Haven't we been standing here for a while already? Bruce said, if we keep this up, they'll be done soon. I think I've heard that somewhere before. Tony scratched his helmet. Since it was a custom-made Lego toy, the mask could not be removed. Oh, right. That time when Hulk and Bane wrestled on the eve of Children's Day. He paused. Do you still remember that night when we almost couldn't finish the reconstruction work? That's different. That time it was inside the house, but this time it's outside the door. Bruce paused and said, this is a sensitive period. We have to try our best to avoid getting ourselves into trouble. We're not the ones who started the fire. It's the fire that's coming to us. Tony added, I knew it. The theft of the Lego blocks is related to Novel. They must have used the Lego weapons on the battlefield. Knight and the rest are here to punish us. Then, you mean we should bring our men out and kill the people from Novel to clear our name? Bruce asked. That's a question of choice. A third voice said. Bruce and Tony turned around and saw the clown walking over from the edge of the balcony. He moved like he was walking on a tightrope, but his gait was wobbly. On the surface, Novel used the Lego weapons on the battlefield to strengthen their unit. But if you think about it, you'll realize there's another reason behind it. Hee, the clown said with a laugh. Bruce replied, they're trying to drag us Lego down with them. That's right. If Classic did not investigate properly and concluded that it was us who provided the Lego weapons to Novel, they might declare war on us directly. Tony added, if we really got into a war, both sides would lose their power and form a grudge against each other. If that happens, even if we know we've fallen in a Novel's trap, we'll have no choice but to form an alliance with them, Bruce said. Like I said, that's a question of choice. The clown raised one finger with a smile. Either we side with Novel as soon as possible. If we form an alliance now, we can still negotiate terms. He raised a second finger. Or we side with Classic and use our actions to prove that Lego did not provide Novel with anything voluntarily. At this point, the clown walked up to the block railing in front of Bruce and Tony. He jumped down lightly and stood before the two. He pointed at the fake flower that was pinned to his collar. Hey, do you want to smell it? Bruce. Bruce looked at the flower and scoffed. Only Thor would fall for a trick like this. That's the choice. Bruce, do you want to smell it or not? The clown looked at Bruce with a sincere smile that would never disappear. I choose the third option. As Bruce said that, he reached out to tilt the stamen of the flower 90 degrees to face the clown's own face. We will not join either Classic or Novel. We want to prove our innocence to Classic and give Novel an appropriate warning. Then we'll continue to remain neutral. He pressed the button on the clown's water-spraying flower. However, the stamen didn't spurt out any water. The flower quickly melted into a ball of pink paste in Bruce's hand and wrapped around his hand. Sometimes you'll have to give in, won't you? The clown walked with smug steps and laughed as he jumped back onto the balcony. Tony turned his face away and shrunk his neck to suppress his laughter. Bruce looked at Tony and then lowered his head to look at his own hand. He grumbled angrily. Then he rushed forward and gave the clown, who was laughing, a push. As a result, the paste stuck his hand to the clown's body, and the two blocks screamed together as they fell off the balcony. Tony poked his head out from the balcony to gloat. He sighed. Poor duo who can't fly. They're always jumping from high places. Chapter 365. While the battle before the Lego house was raging, the battles at the other areas started as well. Actually, the main camps of Classic and Novel were only about 500 meters apart. Their respective sphere of influence was a semicircular area radiating outwards from their headquarters. The areas that were too far away from each other would not be visited because they had no strategic significance. The key was the intersection of the two semicircles to form an olive-shaped area and its two flanks. This battlefront was very long and thick. It was hard to tell whose territory it was. Without a doubt, all the areas on this battlefront were places of intense conflict and conflict. The previous operation of the Nintendo Assault Team was just the most common probing advance, which could only be considered a small-scale battle. Their mission was to symbolically charge into the enemy's territory to see if they could capture any stragglers or hidden sentries. Even if they managed to push into the enemy's territory and kill a portion of the enemy, they would immediately turn back to support the other battlefields. The frozen food section was the balance point between the two territories. It was also the buffer zone between the two neutral zones. The first shot was fired there every night. It was practically a routine for both sides. However, this battle between the toys was not a normal brawl, but a large-scale tug-of-war. Both sides were playing an organized battle on multiple fronts, with multiple points of attack. Therefore, every night, there would be countless small-scale battles, and there would be at least 5 large-scale battles. Brother Ju and Xiao Tan did not know this, but Passing Rain and Laughing Soul did. In a way, Brother Ju and Laughing Soul had a certain advantage because they only needed to be the soldiers. As for Passing Rain and the others, they were the commanders. While the boys were carrying out reconnaissance missions, the two girls were doing their best to command an unfamiliar, complicated, and difficult war. At that moment, inside the sports goods section of a supermarket, Classic Second Unit and Novel's Drifting Army were engaged in a large-scale battle. The main member of the Second Corps was Ultraman, and there were many other special characters, such as the combined robots of the Dinosaur Team, the B-Series robots, which were the members of Metal Armor Babe, such as Kabuta, Bully Cockroach, Shark Chili, Captain Dragonfly, the Masked Superman Legion, and so on. There was even a strange guy like the Golden Armored Warrior mixed in. As for the Drifting Army, other than the captains and vice-captains of the Godai 13, the Masquerade Army, the Ten-Blade Army, Kurosaki Ichigo, and his companions had also made their appearance. They were all characters from the manga Bleach. Even though the members of Second Unit had the advantage in size, the Drifting Army relied on their unique battle tactics, beam attacks, AoE attacks, special attacks, shape-shifting abilities, and so on, to fight them to a standstill. "Sir, this is not good," Advisor Sonico told Laughing Soul softly. "Those salted eggheads are too powerful. If this continues, it is only a matter of time before they are defeated." Laughing Soul was sitting on the edge of a shelf. She held her chin with her hands and frowned deeply. Passing Rain saw that she was deep in thought, so she asked, "Did the surprise attack on the Eastern Front succeed?" Sonico fiddled with a phone screen that was almost the size of her body for a while before replying, "This is the footage from the scene. Take a look for yourself. That's..." Passing Rain saw that the 3 EVAs were fighting against 3 smaller shadows, and they were being suppressed. What exactly did the enemy send? She couldn't help but wonder. "Aral, Astro Boy, Ruangmaru." Laughing Soul answered before Sonico could. She stopped thinking and joined the conversation. "They are all super troublesome characters. I don't think the EVAs can win." She turned around and said, "Advisor." "Yes, sir," Sonico replied. "Arrange for their retreat." Laughing Soul said, "Other than that, try one more time to see if you can contact the 4 personal guards. It has been more than 10 minutes since the time I set for the report." "Yes," Sonico replied and started working in front of the screen. "Have you thought of a way to reverse the situation?" Passing Rain asked. "That is not difficult, but..." Laughing Soul replied with some thought. "I think this side quest will not be completed before dawn." She said, "If there's a great disparity in strength between the two sides of the war, or if there are not many troops on both sides, then it would be fine. But now, it seems that this is not a battle that can be finished in a day. I reckon that even without the help of the commander and Xiao Tan, even if the other side didn't have the help of the commander and Xiao Tan, even if the strategy and intelligence of the toys were far below mine, even so, it will still take about 2 weeks to completely end the war. We can't stay in the scenario for that long," Passing Rain said. "Yes, this is a killing game in non-sleeping mode. In terms of game time, it is clear that the winner will be decided before dawn, Laughing Soul said. So, there has to be a problem with this side quest. How can we win this war in the next few hours? Perhaps, Passing Rain speculated, there is some kind of item or special event in this scenario that can return us to the size of a normal human. I was considering that earlier, Laughing Soul replied. Laughing Soul replied, but there are too many of them. Perhaps we can find a lawnmower at the supermarket and use it to flatten the enemy. Perhaps one of the neutral toy forces has already created something like a toy atomic bomb or a toy virus. Perhaps as long as we destroy their leader, Classic will surrender en masse. Speaking of which, Passing Rain was suddenly reminded of something. Could the key to solving this mystery be related to that answer? Laughing Soul understood what Passing Rain was referring to. Once the two of them entered the scenario, everything went smoothly. They easily gained the trust of all the toys from Novel and gained plenty of information about the plot. But there was one thing that no matter who they asked, they did not get a definite answer. As the leader of Novel, Arthas made it clear that this was a question that should not be asked. The question was, what was the cause of this war? This should be a question that everyone knew. Every participant in the war should have a concept of this. Perhaps due to their different standpoints, the two parties would have different opinions, but it was impossible that no one could tell the cause of this war. As players, they had a hard time understanding why these toys would not be able to explain why they were fighting, but they still fought this war with such determination. Could it be that we have been wrong from the beginning? Laughing Soul said darkly, what we're doing now is as meaningless as the fight between these toys. You think too much. Passing Rain touched Laughing Soul's head. This was a habit that they had shared since they were young. Actually, we only need to ignore this side quest. She used her cold eyes to look down at the battlefield that was filled with noises. For us, the final goal is clear, and that is to kill Bujue and Shao Tan. Laughing Soul seemed to be unwilling to give up on the side quest. She puffed out her cheeks and hesitated for a few seconds. If we really want to give up on the side quest, then things will be much simpler. We only need to use the resources we have at hand to find the location of the leader and Shao Tan no matter the cost, and then use the military to attack them. Perhaps we won't even need to do anything, and we will win this killing game. That won't be necessary. Passing Rain shook her head with a smile. We can use the military to find their location. There was a flash of eagerness in her eyes. Bujue, let me handle this personally. Achoo! Feng Bujue sneezed. He scratched his nose and mumbled, what's going on? Suddenly, I feel a chill down my spine. Is another reader cursing me with black magic? Hey, don't say things like that like you're used to it. Shao Tan added. At that moment, the two of them stood to the side, watching the battle between the 6 NPCs from Classic and the 3 assassins. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were much stronger than they had expected. The 4 of them, be it in terms of attack, defense, speed, skill, or physique, were all amazing. Then again, they were right. The 4 of them were carrying heavy turtle shells. If it was a normal human, they probably wouldn't even be able to stand up straight. On the other hand, the divine turtles acted as if nothing had happened. They could run and jump, and their movements were extremely fast and powerful. If there was a human who could do that, then they would have to be at the level of Rashi. Their combat ability would be at least 30 times stronger than a normal person. After 2 minutes, Classic had gained the upper hand. Only Kenshin and Leonardo were still in a stalemate. Kenshin was known for his speed, and his swordsmanship was perfect. Leonardo's martial arts was not bad either. Combined with the turtle shell that was impenetrable, he had a natural advantage in terms of defense. The two of them went back and forth, and the battle was soul-stirring. In the eyes of the bystanders, there were all kinds of illusory images appearing around them, transforming into thousands of illusions, and the sound of metal clashing could be heard incessantly. Even Feng Bujue could not see the battle clearly. Compared to his battle with Shiva and 7 kills, the battle between these 2 NPCs was on a higher level. By the way, why did you retreat? Feng Bujue asked. I went up to join in the fun. It should help with the improvement of my fighting mastery. That's easy for you to say, Shao Tan replied. Do you know how much stamina points I've spent just now? It means that you're too nervous. When you're nervous, the exhaustion of stamina points will increase. Feng Bujue explained, actually, this has something to do with terror points. When most people encounter something scary or dangerous, not only will they not go berserk, they will also lose their ability to resist. For example, even on a normal road, you might fall down, feel tired easily, and lose control of your limbs. In serious cases, you might even lose control of your bowels. He paused. I once pretended to be a police officer to interview some women who were robbed at night. Some of them had learned self-defense or had pepper spray in their pockets. But when the robber used the knife to hold them from behind, they could not resist at all. They felt their minds go blank and their bodies shake. They did not even dare to scream for help. I'm sorry, but once I heard the term impersonating a police officer, I couldn't focus to listen to your explanation. Xiao Tan's lips twitched as he replied. All right, gentlemen, let's stop here. Suddenly, a loud and clear voice sounded. Hoo hoo hoo. A round shield flew over from afar. It bounced off Sogu, Raphael, and Donatello's weapons and pushed the three of them away. Then, the round shield refracted and flew back. A Lego mannequin in a blue, red, and white coat caught the shield and continued. If you don't stop now, you'll be making an enemy out of the Lego Avengers. Behind him, a swarm of figures appeared. They were Lego Wolverine, Lego Thor, Lego Ant-Man, Lego Hawkeye, Lego B-Girl, and a Lego Iron Man that floated in the air. Of course, the one with the shield was Lego Captain America. Chapter 366. With the arrival of the Lego Avengers, the situation was indeed under control. Even if Classic and Novel were strong players, they would not go as far as to fight the main force of Lego in their territory. Therefore, after Captain America's shield tossed and a shout, everyone stopped fighting. Then, Tony slowly descended from the sky and used a neutral tone to chase the three from Novel away. The latter was smart enough to put away his sword and leave. Under such circumstances, they were lucky to be able to escape unscathed. After the three from Novel started their journey to find the green algae head, Tony told Jazz, I know why Optimus Prime sent you here. I believe there are some misunderstandings between Classic and Lego that we need to clear up. If you trust me, then come with us to the Lego house. Steve, Lego Captain America, said. No problem. Jazz replied. He knew that if the Legos really wanted to harm them, they would have done so earlier. There was no need to chase the people from Novel away. We will not go with you. Leonardo then told Jazz and Nightbeat, it is your job to negotiate. We will return to report to Optimus Prime. Oh, you are not going to continue watching us? Feng Buju asked. Just as Kenshin had said, on the way here, Brother Ju had already noticed the presence of the turtles, and he had already deduced the purpose of these four following him. Since you already know, then the surveillance is pointless. Donatello shrugged. At least from what we have seen so far, you do not appear to be spies from Novel. Raphael scoffed and said darkly, from how I see it, even if you are not much of a threat. Can you help me ask Optimus Prime? Feng Bujue said with a smile. How many more times do we need to conduct this test? Actually, he was not surprised or disgusted by this situation. As the highest commander of Classic, it would be weird if Optimus Prime trusted two strangers after one or two tests. If it was Feng Bujue, he would have made the same choice. Of course, Feng Bujue did not know that, at Novel, the girls were treated with unconditional trust. There was no such thing as testing. Since the system was involved, the command of the military was within reach. You can ask him that in person. Leonardo replied. As he spoke, he gestured to the Black Tortoise brothers. Let's go. Several minutes later, with the Lego Avengers leading the way, Jazz, Nightbeat, Feng Bujue, and Wang Tanji successfully passed the checkpoint at the Lego house and entered the city made from Lego bricks. Once he entered the city, Xiao Tan, who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, acted like a country bumpkin. Along the way, he looked at the Lego roads, buildings, flowers, trees, rivers, cars, pedestrians. He looked left and right, yelling and screaming. He was close to rushing forward to tear down a few Lego blocks to have a look. By the way, I have a question that I've been meaning to ask you. Feng Bujue asked Jazz. What is it? How did this war between classic and novel start? Feng Bujue asked. Or rather, why are they fighting? I was at a loss for words. He looked like he was stumped by the question. It's to win. Then what is considered winning? Feng Bujue pressed, destroying all the other party's toys. Jazz's reaction to this question was similar to the previous one. In any case, we are fighting for victory. We follow the orders of our superiors and follow the lead of Optimus Prime. We do not need to worry about other things. Hey, doesn't that mean? Xiaotan wanted to say something. However, Brother Ju immediately gave him a look and cleared his throat loudly, telling him not to say anything. Xiaotan could only swallow the "doesn't that mean you haven't answered anything" in his heart. Feng Bujue continued. By the way, speaking of fighting, I saw the exchange of fire between the Nintendo assault team and the other party. He paused. The toys that were killed, in other words, those that were cut in half, decapitated, or pulverized, should be considered dead, right? Yes. Nightbeat turned back to join the conversation. Don't tell me you won't die after being beaten up like that. I just want to know, who will deal with their dead bodies? If they are left there, they will be discovered by the supermarket security before dawn, Feng Bujue said. Also, this war has been going on for more than 1 or 2 days, right? Since there are casualties, there must be a way to replenish the soldiers, or else the soldiers will all die. He asked, but where do the soldiers come from? Don't tell me they rely on the supermarket to replenish their stock. These questions were indeed hard to answer. Earlier, Feng Bujue had raised this question about the supermarket surveillance cameras. Theoretically speaking, it was impossible for the war between the toys to not be discovered by humans. Other than that, the death of the toys was a serious problem. After all, how could the inventory of novels, figurines, and models not be discovered? And the antiques like classic, how could they still be in production in the 22nd century? Could it be that the humans in this scenario knew that the toys were fighting, but they pretended not to know and were silently maintaining the possibility of war? Humans do not care about the broken pieces on the battlefield, Jazz replied, as long as we're not seen by them when we are active. With regards to the replenishment of the soldiers, that is confidential. I have no right to answer you. Feng Bujue said, you still haven't said anything. He quickly arranged his thoughts. This war has no goal, only the process. These toys have intelligence and long-term memory, but there appears to be a blind spot in their thinking. As long as there is information related to the rationality of the war itself, or the potential threat from humans, their thinking will be bypassed. At that moment, Xiaotan whispered to Feng Bujue, Brother Bujue, could this be? The situation in this scenario might be similar to night at the museum. Somewhere in this supermarket, there is a Pharaoh's Resurrection gold medallion. Once night falls, it will come into effect and bring the toys back to life to fight the war. The night security guard also knew about this and covered up this matter. You're talking about Agamemnon's medallion, right? Feng Bujue whispered. But that kind of thing will not only bring the toys back to life, right? Mannequins, animal specimens, and even skeletons will be affected. So, that should not be the case. He denied Xiaotan's speculation. Xiaotan said thoughtfully, there's one more thing. From the content discussed at the first unit's meeting, this war will not end overnight, right? He said in a confused tone, we are currently using non-sleeping mode to log into the game. At the very most, we will not be able to wait until the next night. But these toys, they cannot even explain the reason and purpose of the war. How are we going to complete that side quest? I have no answer to that question as well. Feng Bujue said, I suspect there is a hidden worldview in this scenario. Therefore, at the beginning, the synopsis did not mention anything about the situation before us. It only introduced the general time and location of the event. The cause and effect, the people involved, are all unknown. His eyes scanned the toys that were leading the way. Perhaps we have been misled by the content of the side quest. Even if we help Classic with 100 things, it will be a waste of time. Then, Xiaotan lowered his voice like he was guilty. How about we find a chance to escape? Escape to where? Feng Bujue asked. Do you have a direction for your investigation? Xiaotan pondered for a long time, but he could not come up with anything. Actually, we do not need to decipher the worldview. It does not matter whether we complete the side quest or not. This is a killing game, isn't it? Furthermore, it is arranged so that I can fight more battles, right? Hearing that, Feng Bujue smiled noncommittally. Then, let's take it one step at a time. As they spoke, the Lego Avengers led them to a building in the middle of the city. The door was quite wide for the Lego heroes. It was just enough for the two Transformers to pass through. If a toy the size of Optimus Prime wanted to enter, they would have to bend down. Following the group of people, the two players hurried through the door. After they entered the building, they realized the space inside the building was not as small as they thought. In the middle of the space, there was a large rhombus object. It was floating in midair, glowing eerily. This rhombus was estimated to be the size of a normal human brain, and it was naturally composed of Lego bricks. However, the bricks on the rhombus were always in a state of activity, and the color on the surface of the rhombus was constantly changing like waves. You're finally here. Classics jazz, night beat, and two travelers from another dimension. A voice came out of the rhombus. It sounded like a wise old man. Tony and Bruce had some disagreements on whether to bring you to see me or not. Therefore, I was delayed for a while and could not greet you immediately. We are meeting for the first time. How dare you say the words travelers from another dimension? Feng Bujue did not care whether he was qualified to speak or not. He stepped forward and said, May I ask who you are? Don't be rude, recruit. Jazz turned back and said, You are facing the omniscient Lego Prophet. Even if Optimus Prime was here, you would not use such a tone. It's okay, Jazz. The Lego Prophet interrupted Jazz and then said to Feng Bujue, I think you must have a lot of questions to ask me. Chapter 367. But I think I should have a chat with the two scouts from Classic first. The Lego Prophet continued. After we're done talking, I'll answer your and your companion's questions in detail. Okay, then I won't interrupt. Feng Bujue said. You guys go ahead. As he spoke, he used his right hand to make a zipper motion over his mouth. In the next 10 minutes, the two Transformers, the Lego Avengers, and the Prophet had a long and tedious discussion. The atmosphere of this conversation was not very tense, because the misunderstanding itself could be easily explained. Actually, Novel's Toys had stolen a bunch of Lego bricks from Lego and used them to build their own helicopters. If Lego had to take any responsibility, it would be their lack of control over their own resources. It was not up to the people from Classic to comment on this kind of thing. Therefore, Lego's neutral stance will not change, and Novel will pay for their transgression. This is a personal vendetta between Lego and Novel. At the end of the conversation, Tony said, With regard to the loss caused by the Lego helicopters, we can only express our regret. Jazz was silent for a few seconds. He exchanged a look with Nightbeat and then replied, Okay, we will relay your message to Optimus Prime. He turned to face Feng Bujue and Xiaotan. Newbies, Nightbeat and I will return to the command center to report. You can come back after you're done with the Prophet. Yes, sir, Feng Bujue replied. He was polite. It looked like he wished for the other party to leave. The knight shrugged non-committally and walked out the door with the night patrol. Tony, you should leave as well, Lego Prophet said. I wish to speak with these two guests in private. Prophet, these two gentlemen look unfamiliar. Steve reminded cautiously. Are you sure you want all of us to leave? Don't worry, Lego Prophet replied. These two will not use violence against me. Furthermore, I'm not afraid of violence. If you say so, then fine. Tony responded on behalf of Captain America and patted Steve's shoulder. Then, they left with the other Avengers. After the door of the building closed, the Lego Prophet spoke again. Nice to meet you, Feng Bujue and Wang Tanji. Feng Bujue perked up when he heard this guy call out his name. A prophet is indeed a prophet. You live up to your name. Logically speaking, only a small number of toys from the classic camp would know our names. Since we entered the Lego city, Jazz and Night Patrol have never once mentioned our names. They only called us new recruits. Under such circumstances, if you address us as such, then the only possibility is only two. Lego Prophet continued. First, I can use a method like a bug or a spy to obtain information directly from Classic. The rhomboid paused for a moment. Secondly, I have the ability to observe you on a data level. Fong Bujue smiled and said, Your reasoning is also very fast. Same to you, Lego Prophet replied. Fong Bujue continued, Since you came up with these two hypotheses, then I believe there is a 70% chance that it is the second scenario. He crossed his arms before his chest and lifted his head. Then I have another hypothesis. You're not a normal data. That is obvious. The Lego Prophet smiled and said, This diamond-shaped building block polymer is just my carrier in this space. I'm not here. He did not intend to hide his identity and introduced himself. I am one of the 12 members of the Court of Truth, the Prophet. How come I am not surprised by this development? Xiao Tan's lips twitched. Then you must know what is going on with this war that is happening inside the supermarket, right? Fong Bujue asked. This is not a supermarket, but a prison. The Prophet did not sound like he was joking. The toys are all prisoners. Fong Bujue followed the man's train of thought. Yes, and they're all life imprisonment. The Prophet replied, Of course, they were not toys originally. These prisoners may have been office workers, students, ruffians, millionaires, athletes, murderers, actors, and so on in the past. After coming to this prison, their memories and ideologies will be adjusted. And personality, as a value that cannot be corrected, can only be retained. So they are usually turned into toy characters that are closest to their temperament. So, Nintendo's Donkey Kong is actually transformed from a certain universe's Hideaki Kochi. Fong Bujue said casually. How is that possible? The Prophet continued in a relaxed tone. The gorilla transformed by Hideaki Kochi can only swing on tires at most. Donkey Kong must be transformed from someone at the level of Akagi Takenori. Well, indeed. Fong Bujue rubbed his chin and responded, but Kondo Takashi seems to be, hey, why do you have to talk about those inexplicable things when the NPC is talking about the dark side of the plot? Xiaotan could not help but grumble. What is there to discuss about which character's gorilla is stronger than the rest of them? Besides, the other two people besides Hideaki Kochi are fictional characters. I see. Fong Bujue suddenly said seriously. No wonder these toys can't tell the reason for the war, and they don't care about the flaws that may be discovered by humans. Consciousness adjustment is a very practical technology. The Prophet continued, It can effectively limit the mind of the adjusted subject without destroying their thinking ability. He paused and explained, In the minds of those prisoners, there are many blind spots that cannot be accessed. To make an analogy, it is like a color that does not exist in your cognition at all. Before you see this color with your own eyes, you can't imagine it at all. Even if you really see it, you don't know what this color is called. You two are getting into and out of character too quickly, Xiao Tan shouted. It's like the discussion about the gorilla didn't happen at all. You instantly returned to the previous topic with a straight face. Brother Bujue and the Prophet still ignored him and continued to talk. Then, what are the supermarket security guards? Prison guards? Fong Bujue asked again. The Prophet sneered for a while. The night security guards here go to work at 8 o'clock and patrol every 3 hours. It will be 2 o'clock in the morning in about 10 minutes. Later, you can go and see for yourself what they are. Wait, Xiaodan was still trying to interrupt. I have a question too. Since this is a prison, why is it set up like this? What's the point of turning prisoners into toys and letting them fight for no reason? This is not unusual. I have seen stranger settings. Fong Bujue could not help but recall the corridor where Billy, Labit, and Alden were imprisoned. This time, the Prophet responded to Xiao Tan's question. The responsibility of the Court of Truth is to supervise, judge, and detain. In the 42 known main universes, all the highly intelligent life forms are under our jurisdiction. Many of them are very powerful and have to be kept in solitary confinement. Sometimes, we even have to design prisons specifically for them. He paused for 2 seconds before continuing. And the prison that you are in now is a place for normal prisoners. There are tens of thousands of them, and they are extremely difficult to manage. But as long as they are kept busy, this will be much easier. This time, it was Feng Bujue who stole the prophet's dialogue. Every night, they are engaged in a war that they can't win and can't finish. Even though there will be casualties, new prisoners will be turned into toys to fill up the ranks. The prophet said, "War is an activity that requires absolute commitment from the participants. It can make these prisoners exhaust themselves and run for their lives. They have no time to think about other things, and they have no time to do other things. They, who have been turned into toys, are busy every night in a limited area in the middle of the supermarket. No one will think that, I want to climb out the window and leave this supermarket. Are there really no exceptions to this kind of imprisonment?" Xiao Tan asked. "The key is the so-called consciousness adjustment." Feng Bujue replied. "When the toys think about the question, why am I fighting this war? It is like you're thinking about the question, what is the meaning of life? Obviously, you will not get the answer, but you will not stop living because of that. Similarly, the toys will not be able to tell you why they are fighting this war, but they will continue to fight." "Ah, very sharp." The prophet laughed. "Feng Bujue, no wonder you are the man who helped Billy and the rest escape from prison." Brother Bujue knew something was wrong when he heard that, but he did not show it on his face. He asked tentatively, "What are you talking about? I don't understand." "Don't worry, I am on your side, or else I would not have told you so much," the prophet said. "You should still remember Ravid, right? We are old friends. I am happy that he was able to escape from the prison of the Master of Time." Once he said that, Feng Bujue was reminded of what Billy had said. Ravid and his cousin were members of the jury, but they were convicted for contempt of court. The prophet sighed and said, "Actually, when Billy and Aldan were summoned to the court for the crime of spreading chaos, I also voted not guilty. But in the end, the verdict was still guilty. Therefore, Ravid and Bugs Bunny went out of control. Ravid used a roundhouse kick on the jurors who voted not guilty, and Bugs Bunny used a ball of dung to attack the judge. The court descended into chaos. Hey, isn't this a bit too much information?" Xiao Tan listened to this strange narration, and his terror points rose. "Oh, so that's what happened." Feng Bujue was quite calm. In the end, Bugs Bunny used the chaos to draw a hole in the wall and escaped, and Ravid, along with Billy and Aldan, was thrown into the prison of the Master of Time for contempt of court. At this point, the timeline was clear in his mind. After that, the prison guard, Sam Montier, betrayed us and ran into me. He was captured again and sent to Devil's Maw Island. Billy and the rest entered the palace for the second time, and this time, it was Faust who was the guard. Then it was because they ran into me that the three of them managed to escape again. "Yes, that is exactly what happened," the prophet replied. "Are we really playing the same game?" Xiao Tan looked at Feng Bujue with a confused gaze. Brother Ju's power level in his heart climbed to a new height. Feng Bujue asked, "Based on what you said earlier, the supermarket security guard is not the prison guard. You are?" "No, I'm just a bystander," the prophet replied. "I use my identity as the Lego prophet to control the neutral Lego forces and maintain the balance and intensity of the war." He smiled. "What I do is actually very simple. All I have to do is speak." "Humph. Looks like the people from Classic did not accuse you wrongly." Feng Bujue only needed 1 second to understand the meaning behind the man's laughter. The reason Novel was able to steal the blocks was probably because you purposely leaked the information. "Ha! Unfortunately, you're a traveler from another dimension, or else I would recommend you to join the jury." The prophet smiled. "We happen to have a vacancy." His words basically confirmed Brother Ju's speculation. Feng Bujue was not that interested in the prophet's suggestion. He continued to ask for the information he wanted. "We're not done yet." Since you said the supermarket security guards are not the prison guard, then you're not the prison guard as well. Then who is the prison guard? Where can I find him? The prophet replied. Why are you in such a hurry to find him? Yes, Fong Bujua said in a normal tone. I want him to help me end this war. Hearing that, the prophet hesitated for a few seconds. The surface of the rhomboid started to shake violently. Mr. Fong Bujua, you should know that whether it is me or the prison guard, our responsibility is to ensure that this war can continue endlessly. Aren't you just a bystander? Fong Bujua's eyes turned cold and sharp. He said darkly, where does the word responsibility come from? This statement caused the rhomboid to descend into silence. At the same time, the building that they were in started to change. Every block on the walls and floor started to move restlessly like they were alive. Hey, what is going on? Xiao Ting gasped in shock. How did you guys turn hostile so quickly from a friendly conversation? You told me 90% of the truth, just so you could put in a false impression. Fong Bujua smiled coldly at the rhomboid. But the more information I know, the more suspicious the details become, and I cannot ignore them. Chapter 368. Fong Bujua did not mind the change around him. He continued to talk to himself. When you announced that you voted for Billy and Aldan not guilty, from how I see it, you have already made your stance clear. He scoffed. Those two were given the crime of spreading chaos, and it was not unjust at all. If they were found not guilty, then that would be strange. He shrugged. Billy likes to lock people up and play a game, and Aldan likes to kill you if you don't tell me a ghost story. As for Rabbit and Bugs Bunny, the prophet still did not answer, but the Lego blocks around them shook even more violently. Fong Bujua speculated. From how I see it, that day in court, other than the two bunnies, you were not idle either, right? As Rabbit's old friend, you are obviously on his side. Your attitude toward the side of chaos is the same. So, he swung his arm and pointed at the rhombus. There is only one truth. You suddenly said a famous line without any sense of awkwardness. Xiao Tan's lips twitched as he commented. Brother Ju continued from where he left off. You are the same as Rabbit. You are detained for contempt of court, right? Humph. But the way you're detained is different from him. Rabbit, Billy, and Aldan are locked up in the prison created by the Time Master, and you are locked up here. Just as he finished, the Lego blocks on the walls and floor suddenly stopped moving. The rhombus suddenly collapsed, and the Lego blocks fell to the ground. A giant, for Brother Ju and Xiao Tan, who were the size of toys, had appeared from within. Obviously, this was the prophet's head. There was no projection, his actual body was in this space. Wow! Xiao Tan gasped when he saw the prophet's face. So, you're a Wookiee, a fictional race from Star Wars, covered in long hair, mostly brown, and with a face like a long-haired Cheshire dog? Judging from the head, the prophet did indeed fit the image of a Wookiee, but he replied in a rather unhappy tone, no. Indeed, you don't think or act like a Wookiee, Fong Bujua said, but after seeing your real face, I can't help but ask, is there really a person in your so-called 12-member jury? His question was not without reason, for of the 3 members of the jury he knew, none was human. Oomph! The prophet's floating head sneered. How many races do you think exist in the multiverse? You humans are only a small part of it. All right, let's put that question aside for now. Since you've given up on your disguise, let's be frank, Fong Bujua said. As matters stood, the prophet could not be bothered to continue to conceal the truth. After all, there was no harm in revealing the truth to begin with. Since you insist on getting to the bottom of this, you must be mentally prepared for the truth. Don't worry, my mental endurance is beyond your imagination, Fong Bujua replied. The prophet was silent for a few seconds, sighed, and said, I am both a prisoner here and a guard here. Oh, then the adjustment of the prisoner's consciousness was also done by you? Fong Bujua asked. That's right, the prophet replied. Not only that, but it was also me who turned them into toys. He paused for a moment. The night security guards are just a few puppets with no consciousness, and they were also created and controlled by me. Huh? Why'd you do all this? Xiao Tan asked. Let me tell you a story. The prophet let out a long sigh, as if he was adjusting his emotions. Once upon a time, there was a prison. This prison looked like a large supermarket. There were all kinds of goods inside, or rather, resources, which included food, clothes, fuel, luxury goods, tools, weapons, and so on. This prison held thousands of prisoners, men, women, old and young. They were all human prisoners from the 42 main universes. Every day, everything in this prison would be reset. The things that were broken would be restored. The shelves that were emptied would be filled. The bloodstains on the ground would disappear, and so would the corpses of the dead. Only the things that recorded the date would be changed. For example, the wall calendar would automatically be delayed by 1 day every day. The production date on all the food packaging would also be delayed by 1 day. The doors and windows of the supermarket could be opened freely, but the city outside the supermarket was just an illusion. If the prisoners walked out of this building, they would fall into the endless void and die. Of course, staying in this prison was not a problem for them. No one would starve, and there were even many entertainment facilities for them. After all, the resources were inexhaustible. At least, that was what people thought in the first few days. However, a problem soon appeared. Every day after the reset, new prisoners would appear, and they would be randomly placed in various parts of the supermarket. The smallest number would be a few, while the largest number would be dozens. Just like that, a week passed. As the population increased, the conflicts between the prisoners became more frequent. Initially, it was a small number of strong and aggressive prisoners who competed with each other for entertainment facilities, luxury goods, expensive food, beautiful women, and so on. During that period, the basic survival needs of the prisoners were not threatened. There was plenty of food and drinking water, so most of them were more obedient. After a few weeks, the population continued to increase unknowingly. It was not until a month later that there were long lines in front of the few toilets. 2 months later, 1/3 of the supermarket was filled with the stench of excrement, and in the remaining 2/3, people crowded together to eat. On the 10th day of the 3rd month, the prisoners who had formed gangs and occupied the food, women, and entertainment areas were massacred by the other prisoners. The latter had reached the point where they could only eat 1 meal a day and had no privacy when they excreted. After that incident, the problem of resources was slightly alleviated, but the fear remained in people's hearts. Thus, an institution similar to a government was born. They established a set of rules, stipulated that food should be rationally distributed, luxury goods should be used in rotation for a limited time, robbery, murder, rape, and other violations should be punished, and they even established a population registration system. This is probably the most ironic thing I have ever heard. Feng Bujua heard this and continued, a group of prisoners trying to implement laws and regulations in a prison. This is the contradiction of human nature. Xiao Tan said thoughtfully, when living in a civilized society, people yearn for freedom and indulgence. But under the law of the jungle, people also yearn for safety and order. The prophet sighed again and then continued to narrate, however, politics is a dirty thing after all. To implement a system, there must be executors. Those supervisors put in the work, so naturally, they would want more resources. The problem of the increasing number of prisoners was not fundamentally solved. Therefore, after a period of time, to be exact 2 months and 3 days after the first massacre, the resources were once again in a serious crisis. At that time, people discovered that the management organization had become another hegemonic group that oppressed the other prisoners, no different from the initial group of bullies that were massacred. Unsurprisingly, the second large-scale massacre broke out. After the bloody storm, the survivors finally realized that there was only one way to maintain peace, and that was to maintain the number of prisoners in the prison at a safe level forever. Thus, hundreds of survivors reached an agreement. Kill every new batch of prisoners that came in from that day onwards. These days lasted for a long time. During that period, after the reset at midnight every day, The first thing the old prisoners had to do was to find the new prisoners that appeared in the supermarket and kill them all. Then, they could have a peaceful day. But the number of new prisoners thrown in every day was not fixed, and after a long time, there would always be fish that escaped the net. There were also people who, out of selfishness, secretly kept and hid some beautiful women and forced them to be slaves on the condition that they were not killed. In short, after a period of accumulation, the conflict finally broke out. After that, there was a new structure. The prisoners were divided into several different forces, each occupying an area. Each faction had their own way of doing things, their own principles and positions. They fought with each other for resources. Although there were casualties, they could be replenished by the new prisoners. Xiao Tan was enlightened. Isn't this the same as the current situation? Yes, it's almost the same, the prophet continued. But it's not the same. He looked down at the two players. If you were in my position, would you be willing to see a group of humans putting on all kinds of dirty shows in front of you every day, deceiving each other, blood and flesh flying? Or would you be more willing to see a group of toys fighting a bloodless war? So, you use your ability to change this prison. Feng Bujue continued. Yes, after adjusting their consciousness, these prisoners will think that they are like the characters in Toy Story, in a supermarket in the human world. When the business hours are over every day, they will be active and fight for glory. During the day, they will enter a state of unconscious dormancy under my ability, the prophet said. After many experiments and corrections, I have blocked many areas in their minds. At this stage, this operation is almost perfect. The toys will still avoid the security puppets I send, but their awareness of not being discovered by humans is limited to this. The prophet took a deep breath and said, when I was imprisoned in this prison, the crime was not only contempt of court, but more importantly, my inclination toward chaos. In order to punish me, the Court of Truth specially designed this prison to show me all kinds of evil, endless evil, as a kind of torture. And you humans are the best actors. You are selfish, stubborn, conceited, cunning, fragile, ignorant, rude, hypocritical, dirty, barbaric, jealous, greedy, licentious, irritable, stupid, and unrepentant. But in the end, I found a way to free myself from it. By relieving the prisoners of their physical needs, I have effectively maintained the population, and by limiting their hours of activity, I have established a system that will last forever. With the premise of preserving the individuality of the soul, I turn the complicated desire and ugliness in human nature into a pure, but not cruel, will to fight. I have given you humans, this hopeless race, control. At this point, the prophet's emotions became more agitated. Now, do you understand? There is nothing here that you need to end. He said darkly, I did not want to say so much, but now that I have, you should be satisfied, right? Feng Bujue. Brother Ju wiped the sweat from his forehead. Okay. Thank you for your hard work. At that moment, the blocks on the ground floated up again and gathered around the prophet's head. They wrapped around him and formed the rhombus that kept changing on the surface. Very well, then. The prophet let out a long sigh and said, 10 minutes ago, before you recklessly exposed my identity as a prisoner and wanted to know the truth, I tried to tell you this. He paused for a moment. Don't get involved in the war. Go find the other 2 travelers from another dimension and get out of here. Chapter 369. Feng Bujue thought about it and replied, Okay, I get it. I can promise you that I will no longer try to interfere with the general trend of this war, but I can't guarantee what the other 2 travelers from the other world will do. He tried to say, if you really want us to leave as soon as possible, what do you want? The prophet interrupted. I want you to lend me your army. Feng Bujue said, The prophet relied on this single word to fully convey his indignation. That is impossible. Feng Bujue added, After all, we only have 2 targets. There is no need to mobilize so many people. It was the same word, but this time the prophet was conveying That was more like it. How about this? Feng Bujua added. How about you give us a box of Lego bricks? What are you planning to do? The prophet asked. Of course, I'm going to build a vehicle that can help us find and approach our target. Feng Bujua said with a darkened face. Amidst thousands of soldiers, take down the enemy's general. I understand. The prophet interrupted again. I will give this order as the prophet of Lego. You can define this operation as the prophet's official response to the theft of Lego resources from novel. Xiaotan interrupted, but technically, we are still classics people. Is it okay for us to do this for Lego? After tonight, we will disappear forever. Why are you still thinking about that? Feng Bujue replied on behalf of the prophet. He raised his head to look at the rhombus. That it's a deal. At 2 a.m. sharp, the two night guards left the security room punctually. Just as the prophet said, the guards were merely his puppets. They had no consciousness. At a fixed time, they would come out from the security room, switch on their flashlights, and split into two groups to patrol the area. The whole process took exactly 15 minutes. After the patrol, they would return to the security room and lock the door from the inside. During this time, the toys would not come out. They had turned off all the light sources in advance and hid at the bottom of the shelves or in some blind spots, waiting for the patrol to end. However, as players, Passing Rain and Laughing Soul had no such concerns. For them, it was more convenient to move around during this period of time. When the clock struck 2 a.m., they departed from Novel's territory. Two agile figures leaped forward on top of the shelves, quickly approaching the Lego house. All the hidden sentries around them were rendered useless. They did not have to worry about being ambushed. Classic would not be able to discover their whereabouts and react accordingly. Sigh. In the end, I still gave up on the side quest. Laughing Soul grumbled along the way. But is it really okay to not bring the personal guards? Without the aid of the scenario, we won't be able to defeat the leader, right? Passing Rain was calm. That can't be helped. The other toys will not move during the patrol. If we want to bring the personal guards with us, we have to wait until the patrol ends. Cola House has already taken precautions against Novel, so now is the only chance for us to get close. Cousin, how come I feel like you're purposely trying to lose? Laughing Soul could not help but voice her thoughts. Since this is just a practice match, the results should not matter, right? Passing Rain replied. She turned her head to look at Laughing Soul. Furthermore, with Buju's cleverness, he should have seen through your original intention and told Xiaotan about it. Huh? What original intention? I don't understand. Laughing Soul quickly played dumb. Don't worry, since the main purpose of this match is to help Xiaotan gain more experience in fighting other players, I will not go too far. Passing Rain continued, ignoring Laughing Soul's denial. As a player who specializes in close combat, Xiaotan's current ability is only slightly above average. If I give it my all, he will be dead within 10 moves. She analyzed confidently. Bujue should know that as well. He will not allow that to happen, so he will focus on me from the start so that I won't be able to focus on him. At the very least, I'm a sniper. I can one-shot people, okay? You're all ignoring me. Laughing Soul replied. Even though your skill and the power of your sniper rifle can affect Artemis's embrace to a certain extent, it is still a perfect equipment that specializes in countering long-ranged attacks, Passing Rain explained. Unless you also have a perfect shooting weapon, even if he stands there for you to aim at, the chance of killing him in one shot is very low. And for someone like Bujue, if you can't kill him in one shot, it will be very hard to find another chance to snipe him. Laughing Soul thought about it for a few seconds. What I mean is, doesn't the leader need to be on guard against me sniping Xiaotan? He knows you won't snipe Xiaotan, Passing Rain replied. What do you mean by that? Laughing Soul was strangely angry. I also know you won't snipe Xiaotan, Passing Rain said. Cousin, you're being a bully. Because this is a practice match, there's no point in killing him in one shot, Passing Rain said. Laughing Soul was startled. Yes. Yes. This is to train him. She laughed sinisterly and took advantage of the situation to say, watch me shoot him full of holes. Achoo! Xiaotan's sneeze caused his whole body to jump. What's going on? Is Xiao Ling cursing me behind my back again? Not only did she use the tone that she's used to, she even mentioned the person's name. Feng Bujua's criticism was equally sharp. At the time, the two of them were standing in the corner of Lego City, waiting for Musashi to assemble the vehicle. This was the second time Feng Bujua had summoned this guy. The first time was at South Park. Before leaving the sandbox, to not waste the skill's cooldown, Brother Ju had used this summoning skill once and communicated with this summon character. Musashi's appearance was that of a primary school student from comic. His head was triangular, his chin was sharp, and his face was long. He wore a pair of glasses that covered half of his face. He wore a yellow short-sleeved t-shirt and purple shorts with 2 red straps. He had a pair of conspicuous red socks on his feet, and there was a green bow tie with many purple polka dots on it. His first appearance in the original work was when the teacher asked him to write his name in kanji. However, he stood up with great vigor and replied, "I, Musashi Kagane, am a strange third grader who can't write more than 6 Chinese characters." But in reality, he was a genius. His answer was so that the teachers and students would look at him with disdain, contempt, coldness, and discrimination. He wanted others to think that he was a weirdo, pervert. According to Musashi's research, 99% of the great people in history were seen as weirdos in their childhood and school years. Because Musashi wanted to become a great person, he decided to become a weirdo first. Driven by this kind of crazy logic, Musashi firmly embarked on the path of weirdo. When he walked or stood, his hands would naturally be raised before him in a posture similar to snake fist. When he spoke in a strange tone, and occasionally he would let out a hiss sound. When he succeeded in doing weird things and was watched by others, he would feel very happy. Sometimes his body would spin at high speed like a wheel. In the 6th volume of Unravel, Mr. Akira Toriyama had designed a game that divided the weirdos into 5 stages. They were Sour Plum Superman stage. Use your brave index finger to poke the butt of the person next to you. Forest King Bastion stage. Open the window and shout "ah" 3 times. Hobie Iceman stage. Jump and shout shit. Dr. Maester stage. Shout merge and then get into someone's arms. King Nakoto stage. Stuff peanuts in his nose and then spit them out. If he did all 5 of these things, he would be an out-and-out pervert. Based on this standard, Musashi's Kogani had long since lost his mind and was beyond redemption. In short, this was a very annoying summoning character. Its summoning condition, do a strange action, was quite unique. Not to mention, he was almost useless in battle. His combat power was infinitely close to 0. However, he was not completely useless. On the contrary, he might be more useful than any other F-level summoning character. Because Musashi could create things. Of course, his ability to invent and create was far inferior to those god-level figures like Dr. IQ and 3-Eye Prodigy. However, compared to those scientific and normal virtual characters, the things that Musashi Koganai created were extremely sharp. Haha, it's done. After 20 minutes of assembly, Musashi successfully created a weird-looking mech with Lego bricks. He announced happily, "This is it, Lego Fugu Gladiator. This is the most disgusting robot I have ever seen." Feng Bujua said, "It's like those creatures that the newbies made when they played Spore. Actually, before you told me that the spine of creatures could be adjusted, I have been making that." Brother Ju's words seemed to evoke some strange memories in Xiaotan. "Huh, you must think that it's weird for me to make this kind of thing." Hiss. Musashi was so excited that he spun vertically like a snake. "My perverted index has risen again. He. Hey, that kind of index only exists in your imagination, and it's useless." It was the first time that Xiaotan had seen this weird kid's behavior. Without a doubt, he was shocked. Unexpectedly, just as Xiaotan finished speaking, Musashi turned into a white light and disappeared. What happened? Could it be that he knows how to become invisible? Xiaotan was confused. "It's just that the time is up." Feng Bujue replied, and pointed at his knee. Actually, he should have disappeared 4 minutes ago. It must be the special effect of the growth alchemy amplification device that allowed him to exist longer. He touched his chin and said, theoretically, this special effect of slightly increasing the effect of the summoning skill should not only be reflected in the time. Perhaps Musashi's inventive ability or fighting ability has been increased as well, but this kind of increase cannot be directly seen. No, I think the increase in his perverted ability has been directly shown to me, Xiao Tan said. Feng Bujue smiled and said, all right, let's get back to the topic. Even though we now have a robot vehicle similar to Gundam, it is still very difficult to find Passing Rain and Laughing Soul in Novel's camp. So far, we cannot confirm their role and mission in Novel. In fact, we cannot be 100% sure that they are in Novel's camp. So, they're already heading this way. Suddenly, another voice sounded from behind the two of them, joining the conversation. The two players turned around and saw a Lego toy. It was a bald elder in his suit sitting in a wheelchair. Chapter 370. Professor X? Feng Bujue asked. Yes, Professor X replied in his infectious and cordial tone. Hello. Wait a minute. Xiao Tan reacted quickly. He leaned over and whispered into his brother Ju's ear. That's not right. This guy can read other people's minds. What if he read the prophets? Professor, I want to ask, what is your superpower? Feng Bujue ignored Xiao Tan and asked the professor a question he already knew the answer to. Unexpectedly, the Lego Professor X replied, I don't have any superpowers. Huh? Xiao Tan was stunned. No way. That's obvious. Feng Bujue turned his head and whispered to his teammate. Toys can't have mental abilities like memory reading or mind control. He shrugged. If they do, then it would be meaningless for you to lower your voice because he already knew what you were talking about before you even said it. Oh. Xiao Tan nodded. A few seconds later, he asked, Professor, does that mean you don't have any combat abilities? Knowledge is power. Even without superpowers, I can still do a lot of things. Professor X smiled. Of course, you can also treat me as an ordinary bald man in a wheelchair. No, I didn't mean that. The kind Xiao Tan quickly waved his hand and denied. Well, very well. Professor X maintained the peaceful smile on his face. Because if you dare to mention the words wheelchair or baldy, I'll have my students pin you to the ground and crush your skull with the wheelchair. Hey, he's completely corrupted. He's obviously very concerned about his lack of superpowers. And he's already said those two words twice, Xiao Tan muttered softly. Feng Bujue stepped forward and changed the topic. Well, Professor, if you can't use telepathy, how did you know they're here? I'm just running an errand for the Prophet. I'm here to pass on a message, Professor X replied. The next second, he suddenly added, What? Are you saying that I don't have legs that can run? Then, he pulled out a pistol from his jacket pocket. Go to hell, you two impolite brats. Then, he jumped up from his wheelchair and started shooting randomly. Brother Ju and Xiao Tan were shocked. They rolled to the sides and fled like rats. Fortunately, this Professor X had poor marksmanship and did not hit the target at all. Moreover, the gun he used and the bullets he fired were all extremely small Lego pieces, which didn't cause much damage to the surroundings. At this moment, there was a whooshing sound. A red shadow instantly appeared and snatched the gun from Professor X's hand. Hey, stop messing around. Lex_Luthor, Superman's nemesis, one of the classic villains. It's time to take your medicine. As he spoke, the Lego Flash pushed Luthor back into the wheelchair and pressed a button on the back of the wheelchair. A few wooden sticks popped out from both sides of the wheelchair and tied up the crazy Baldy, making him unable to move. Let me go. I'm Professor X. They discriminate against disabled people. Luthor's legs flailed as he struggled. He was pushed away by the Flash. I'm sorry. Another blue shadow appeared beside Feng Bujue and Wang Tanji with the speed of the Flash. He was Quicksilver, the son of Magneto, and basically Marvel's Flash. Once the medicine stops, he'll show symptoms of schizophrenia. Last week, He was shirtless and painted his body with paint to pretend to be Kratos. In the end, he was slapped into a pancake by the Hulk. Why would they send someone like that to deliver the message? Xiao Tan replied, in any case, according to the information given by the prophet, there are 2 members from Novel who ignored the security and are approaching the Lego house. They will arrive soon. Quicksilver added, the prophet's intention is for you to deal with them outside. Oh, they've come to us on their own accord. Feng Bujue scoffed. Humph, that's quite brave of them, the guys from the Survey Corps. How many times are you going to use this kind of costume joke? Xiao Tan said weakly. Obviously, in the 2 weeks between the end of Chonglin Sword Festival and I Am a Writer, Feng Bujue often made fun of Passing Rain's costume. Okay, we'll go now, Feng Bujue said as he jumped onto the Lego pufferfish gladiator and opened the cockpit cover. The appearance of the mech was like a pufferfish with long legs. There were 2 parts to the whole machine. One was the body. There was no distinction between the head and the torso. And the other was the 2 legs. Tapered legs, they could not be straightened, and the bones were wondrous. Furthermore, the Lego pufferfish gladiator only had legs and no arms. From Musashi's It's Done, it was not because he did not have enough time, but because he did not want the mech to look weird. The cockpit of this thing was similar to a biplane. One at the front and one at the back. It could only seat 2 people. The more confusing thing was, how did this thing fight? And a robot without arms, why would it need 2 pilots? Would each of them control 1 leg? Oh, the control is quite simple. After Feng Bujue jumped into the cockpit, he realized there were only 2 joysticks and a knob-shaped switch. The left side of the knob was off, and the right side was on. The 2 joysticks, without a doubt, controlled the movement of the left and right legs. In front of the console, there was a superfluous word written on it, Mobile Control System. Xiao Tan followed suit and jumped into the mech, entering the co-pilot cabin at the back. Unexpectedly, the moment he sat down, he was shocked. Hey, why are there so many buttons? Huh. Hearing this, Feng Bujue felt incredulous. In the cockpit in front of him, there were only 3 parts that could be controlled. Moreover, it felt as though there was no need for a 4th item. What else could there be at the back? Let me see. Feng Bujue climbed out of his cockpit and took 2 steps across the top of the mech. He moved to the back of the fishtail and looked into the co-pilot cabin. If he did not look, he would not have known. Once he looked, he would piss himself. In Xiao Tan's cockpit, there were at least hundreds of buttons in front of him and on both sides. There were also joysticks, knobs, light switches, various instruments, indicator lights, and so on. The most outrageous thing was, in a very conspicuous position, there was a button covered by a small glass cover. Next to it was a yellow and black nuclear weapon warning sign. Finally, above the console in front of the co-pilot cabin, there were 4 words written, Weapon System. This is really F*King crazy. Even Feng Bujue could not help but shout out loud. The movement control system is even simpler than a bumper car, but the weapon system is like the universal continuous enhancement mobile arsenal. General_unilateral link discontinuous autonomous maneuver. I don't know why. I feel like I could destroy the world just by sitting here and rolling my face on the keyboard, said Xiao Tan with narrowed eyes. That's not right. Calm down and think about it. A weapon that only took 20 minutes and less than a box of Lego bricks to make can't be that powerful. Feng Bujue muttered, maybe it looks like there are many buttons, but in fact, most of them are useless devices of little value. For example, a bunch of buttons are all for adjusting the temperature and humidity in the cockpit. Only 1 or 2 of them are real weapons. You could try it out slowly, said Xiao Tan as he pushed open the co-pilot cabin cover. He stood up, pushed himself up with his arms, and flipped over to the main cockpit in front. I'll control the movement. Feng Bujue did not care. He jumped down from the fishtail and entered the co-pilot cabin full of adjustable parts. Whatever, let's go. Xiao Tan heard this and turned the knob in front of him to the on-side. He then pulled the lever and controlled the pufferfish gladiator to move forward. Hey, it only takes 1 step at a time. Xiao Tan controlled the robot to move less than 10 steps before he realized this very serious problem. And the speed and frequency of the legs are exactly the same as the speed of my hand pulling the lever. So what? Feng Buju asked. Using this method of pushing and pulling the lever repeatedly, the energy consumption is about the same as walking on my hands. Xiao Tan replied. Humph. Feng Buju scoffed and raised his right hand. That's because you're not good enough. If it were me, I could do it with one hand. Hey, Xiao Tan roared. What's the point of showing off such wretched confidence? At the same time, outside the Lego house, on top of one of the shelves. In the shadows, a sharp gaze had already pierced through the scope of a sniper rifle and aimed at the only exit of the Lego house. This was a perfect sniping spot. It was high up, there was no wind, and the distance was just right. The exit of the Lego house did not even have a cover. It was completely open. With the help of the night vision goggles, Laughing Soul could observe the situation clearly. Even a fly, of course, to them, a fly was about the size of a mouse, would not be able to fly past. Now, all we need to do is wait. Passing Rain held the night vision goggles and squatted down beside Laughing Soul. The two of them were the sniper and observer, and their teamwork was perfect. Anything that happened outside of Laughing Soul's sight would be handled by Passing Rain. Actually, they might have already left the Lego house and returned to the area occupied by Classic. When Laughing Soul spoke, she maintained her aiming position and did not move an inch. When we received the report from the personal guards, it was at 1:53 a.m., and Bujue and Xiao Tan entered the Lego house at around 1:40 a.m. If they went in to complete the mission or trigger the plot, theoretically speaking, they should not have left so soon. What if they are like us, ignoring the night guard and still dare to move around after 1:55 a.m.? Laughing Soul said. Then before we arrive, they will have about 10 minutes to escape. There are two prerequisites to this hypothesis. First, they have completed what they came to do at the Lego house as fast as they could. And second, they still do not wish to fight us, Passing Rain said thoughtfully. With Bujue's style, for the side quest or hidden mission, the leader might temporarily avoid us, Laughing Soul said. Furthermore, this kind of avoidance will not be considered as passive gaming by the system. At most, it will be considered a tactical detour. If they have really returned to Classic's territory, then we will be in a very dangerous situation, Passing Rain said. Laughing Soul sighed. I've thought about it. The patrol ended at 2:15 a.m. From then on, we will wait for another 15 minutes. If no one shows up at 2:30 a.m., or if we are discovered by the hostile toys, we will retreat first. Then, we will use the military's power to stall for time. At that moment, while the two girls were analyzing and discussing various rational strategies, the two gentlemen with crazy mechas in the male group were close to the exit of the Lego house. Ta-ta-da, ta-ta-da, ta-ta-da. The Fugu gladiator ran forward with giant steps. Xiao Tan, who sat in the main cabin, was as tired as a child. Brother Ju, on the other hand, was bored out of his mind. He held his chin with one hand and yawned in the co-pilot cabin. Speaking of which, shouldn't we ask Musashi to build a flying vehicle? It's the safest and fastest way to approach the enemy from the air. Xiao Tan complained between heavy breaths. If that's the case, then wouldn't it be more convenient for us to approach the enemy from the top of the shelf, or for me to use Jeppo to bring you to a higher place to approach the target? Feng Bujue said. That's right. Xiao Tan added. Yes, of course, I've thought of all these plans. Feng Bujue added. But if that's the case, won't I be the one who's so tired that my tongue is hanging out? Huh? Xiao Tan said angrily. You're just trying to scam your teammate. That's not it. Feng Bujue used his hands as a pillow and leaned against the seat. Don't forget, it was you who crawled into the main cockpit. 1 second later, there was a loud slap. It was probably Xiao Tan giving himself a slap. There's something coming out, Laughing Soul suddenly said. Seeing that she didn't fire, Passing Rain knew that something was wrong. She aimed the binoculars at the area before the Lego house. When she saw the thing that appeared in her sight, She put the binoculars down, rubbed her eyes, and then raised them again. "I'll bet 50 cents that Bujiwe is inside," Passing Rain said in a cold and flat tone. "This Lego monster was built by the two idiots, right?" Laughing Soul replied in a tone that said, "These two idiots are beyond saving. If this is a toy that originally existed in the scenario," Passing Rain said, "then it will never be sold. Furthermore, the toys wouldn't have wandered out during the security patrol." As Laughing Soul spoke, she loaded the sniper rifle with a special bullet. "This is interesting. If the vehicle that they're on suddenly explodes, will they be able to survive?" Her lips curled up into a wicked smile, and the gun in her hand was already aimed at the Fugu gladiator's torso. Bang! The moment Laughing Soul pulled the trigger, a thunderous boom tore through the air, and a bullet glowing with a green light shot through the air. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.